welcome to the Might Ramble podcast.
Ron, tell us about that.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest.
Hello, everyone. Before we begin, the views expressed in this podcast are our personal views and do not reflect those of any employer, university, research institution, funding body, or collaborator. Participation by guests does not imply endorsement of my views, nor does my hosting imply endorsement of theirs. Okay, that's all.
More wars were declared against Napoleon than he actually started, but people don't know that.
Or an ultimate narcissist by killing 800,000 of his guys by marching into Russia, right? Like, wow, that's narcissism.
Might get a little hot in here.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like, and Alexander, that you could put in the same boat as he marched forward. His guys were dying, but he's like, we gotta keep doing this, guys.
Yeah. And his army was like, can we go home?
Same with the French. They were like, what are we doing, man? Like.
All right, we're ready.
Here we are.
Yeah, ready to rock. Ready when you are, man.
Yeah, it's been like 45 minutes.
Let's rip it. Let's get ready to rumble.
All right.
Sir.
All right, everyone. Welcome to episode
Hello.
19 of the My Ramble podcast. It is my first time I've ever had multiple guests in person. I've brought in Paul Abbott.
Hello.
Who is definitely a standout guy in his own way. And I've also brought in Mike Lombard, who is also a standout guy, but in a different way. I thought we'd begin. I don't know if each of you just want to introduce yourself a bit, just who you are, what you're about, and I guess how we crossed paths and ended up here.
Mike, you want to start, or how do we go?
Yeah, I'll kick it off.
Okay, go.
No, you can call Michael Lombard, call of unit name. Some people just call me Lombard. Let's see a little bit about me. You can find me on the internet at Lombard Trucking, which we'll definitely get into, but born and raised in Connecticut, went to high school in Waterbury, served in the United States Marines, went to Afghanistan 2010 to 2011, went to college, University of New Haven, entered the trucking industry, the trucking and logistics space in 2017, and I've been working in that ever since, and I started working in the fitness space in 2023. Currently, right now, I work as the partner development manager for a company called Truck Parking Club, which is in essence the Airbnb of tractor trailer parking. And then beyond that, I'm really, really passionate about endurance sports, competing in marathons, triathlon, big time into history, especially different points of history, and always fired up talking trucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Love it.
I think we all met each other because we all go to the same fitness organization, formerly called On It, but now called Correct. I'm Paul Abbott. I find myself here today on Act 3. My family was from South Florida. We raised our kids there. I find myself going to turn 61 this year. And so...
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
If you're watching on video,
So
huge doubt.
So it was like that was part of the move, was to say, where could I find youthful energy and what was happening in America, what will be next, whether space, EV, you name it. It was all coming from Austin, health, longevity, fitness scene, youth culture, and found myself steeped in that, thank goodness. And we can delve a little in my past, but that's how I ended up here on Act 3 for me.
I came to know Paul working in the cafe at this gym, and he would come in and ask me to put, I think it was like caffeine sticks in his already caffeinated drink so that he could hide it from his wife because she was concerned about your caffeine intake. And so Caffeine Paul is how I remember you.
Yeah, Caffeine Poppy is still known as that.
Caffeine Poppy.
Definitely something I need to stop. For sure.
I'm curious, Paul, when did you start traversing, I guess, back and forth, like between Austin and maybe Florida?
Sure. So I never really knew Austin, and then I was starting got invited to go to a Formula One race by the head of the W Series, which was the women's series affiliated with F1 at the time. And I knew the CEO, and she said, just come and party, come to Austin. They were having it at the W, and I did that and went to the races and got to see around town. And at that party, that was where she was saying, hey, Paul, I want to sell a team, and I'd really like someone to get involved. And I said, who would you want to sell it to? And she said, actually Caitlyn Jenner. And I said, I know Caitlyn. And she was like, you're full of shit. And I said, no, I do. So within 2 weeks, we were out in Malibu, and within 4 weeks, I think we had acquired a team from the W Series. So my introduction to Austin was from just coming to the races at COTA, and
Around
really
like when was this?
So that was around 221, 222. I'm not sure. I have to recall, but I didn't have any real perspective, like look for what Austin would be like at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember liking it a lot. And but the end around was, I think Austin was a place that everything new's coming from, and there's like health, longevity, all those things, youth, that I was looking for Act 3.
Yeah, I'll give an example. I think it was like, over a year ago now that I was hearing so much about these peptides, right? And then it's like over a year later, it's like become, massive, like in the mainstream media for sure. What about you, Mike? How'd you end up in Austin?
Yeah, getting Austin's always a really interesting story because all the credit definitely goes to my wife on it. She first came to a bachelorette party here, classic. I want to say it's somewhere between 2017, 2018-ish. Came down here. She loved it. It was awesome. I'd only been to Texas once in 2014. Buddy of mine lived outside of Plano. But I'm going to kind of condense it because it also has to do with kind of like a little bit of my fitness journey. But, when my wife and I got married, or 5 weeks before my wife and I got married, I was offered a promotion at the where I was working for a wholesaler. And I was offered a promotion to run a store and warehouse in North Jersey. And I went down for the interview. I was offered the promotion and didn't like what the salary was. So I had negotiated salary. And this is the first time I ever negotiated for a salary before. And this kind of has to do with a little philosophy because I think this affects military veterans a lot. So I negotiated the salary, and it didn't go my way, and was probably the best thing that ever happened. They wanted me to move 5 weeks before my wedding. They were kind of lowballing the salary. I knew what the job should have paid, and so I turned it down. We get married. We come back. We come back from our honeymoon, and we're driving from New Haven down to Stamford in Connecticut with our other friend Kevin, and we're just chopping it up. I'm disgruntled, wondering. I'm 29 at the time. I'm thinking I'm on the doorstep of 30. I'm married.
This is like 2018.
This is 2019. Okay, so
yeah.
on my mind, I'm married. Like, I'm thinking family, future. What's next? Like, really thinking about leveling up. And this correlates right along with how I was leveling up in fitness in general. And so we're just talking in the car, and my friend Kevin was going through some issues with his last job too, because he was working for kind of a startup that had went under. And and my wife was kind of ready to make a change too. She blurted it out in the car. She was like, "Let's go to Austin." Like, because we were just talking about places that we'd like, and I was spitting out Tennessee and Florida and stuff. Kevin's got connections in West Palm. She blurts out Austin, and like clicked in my brain. I was like, done deal. Texas, absolutely. Like that fits me. That fits my brand. And from that moment forward, I started stacking away huge chunks of my paycheck. We saved up big. We were supposed to come down here, right at the beginning of March of 2020. The anomaly of March of 2020 had occurred, so we ended up pushing it back. We got down here around Memorial Day in 2020. But yeah, from that defining moment in October, we just drew a line in the sand. We committed like that day, like fully committed to that the three of us were going to do it, and we got down here. Kevin ended up, he stuck around for a little bit. He became a pilot, so he ended up actually going to Tennessee. Shout out to my friend Kevin. He came back to Texas. And he lives outside of DFW now. He flies for SkyWest, so he's flying commercial. He kind of followed his dream. I knew that moving here, I was like, I've been calling myself Lombard Trucking on the internet since 2010, named after my family's company. And I had been working on the other side of the loading dock. And so as we drew that line in the sand about moving to Austin, I was like, I'm getting my CDL, and I'm just going to see where that takes me. But it's kind of so big shout out to my wife for getting down here, because it was definitely best decision we had made.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Like, I was out on the East.
Wives are important, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a wife, but
okay.
that's what I've heard,
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I was out on the East Coast for sure, and in grad school, and things didn't go my way, and that's kind of how I ended up in Texas from my younger brother Keith. I know you know Keith. I don't know if you're familiar with Keith or not, and Keith was already down here, and he was like, "Yeah, you should come down to Austin. You should come down to Austin." And so I got pulled down here through something, not working out in my favor as well. So I can relate to that, and it's been a very good decision for me for sure.
Yeah, going to Mike's thing is. My wife had to give the final call too because, she's from South Florida and she's always lived there. So we talked and I said, just go around the country, see what you want. She happened to come into Austin, stayed downtown and really liked it. So without her checking off, I don't think we would have ended up here anyways, but we both agreed on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's go more into your background, Mike. I know that your family has had like a historical trucking business. I don't know if you could just walk us through that a bit in terms of like what the trucking business is. And I don't think, even though you've been calling yourself Lombard Trucking maybe since 2010, so that would put you at what, like 20 years old or so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Was there ever a point where you were thinking that like you weren't going to be affiliated with your company's, I guess, historical business?
Well, I mean, yeah, the Lombard story is really incredibly important because it's definitely defined kind of who I am. Because Lombard Trucking technically was sold before I was born, but it was something I grew up kind of in the shadow of, which is really, really cool. And what I love the most about it is it's not just my story, but it's an American story. When you think of how the United States was built, you think Carnegie, Rockefeller, those big names, but Lombard's one of those names too, because if you think of what builds the country, I mean, it's the supply chain that builds it. And my great-great-grandfather, who was born in Caserta, Italy, right outside of Naples, they came over here at the turn of the 20th century. He had a younger brother, Johnny Lombard, and they started working at a young age. Eventually, they wound up and they were moving. Some of the first things they would do was move luggage from the Waterbury train station to people's houses where they moved, and they had 8 horses and 2 carriages, and they would deliver luggage. They delivered, and specifically, like, this is some of the first freight that they were moving was coffins that were built that would go, for funerals. They would deliver coffins that were manufactured to funeral homes. They would bring this pre-refrigeration. They would take big blocks of ice up into the Litchfield Hills because this is, to keep meat fresh. And then in 1923, they eventually got 2 trucks. They incorporated it as a motor carrier. So really, they're one of the first motor carriers to operate in the U.S. And this was happening throughout parts of the East Coast as motor transport started coming around. People, freight was being adopted. They were one of these early trucking companies that started. And if you look at the Teamsters logo, you'll notice in the Teamsters logo, it does show like a horses and carriage. It shows like 2 horses in the Teamsters logo, and my family's company was a Teamster affiliate. And the Teamster, when I refer to the Teamsters, anybody listening, they were the largest union representing the trucking industry, which I think you might know from UPS.
Surely.
UPS is a long-standing Teamster affiliate, and my family's company, they grew to be one of the largest motor carriers in the Northeast. They had terminals from Baltimore to Maine, over 10 terminals in 10 different states. They were a massive what's called less than truckload or LTL carrier that you have around. Similarly, you might be familiar with who drives today, like ABF is a company that sticks out. Yellow recently went bankrupt, but Yellow and YRC is another company people might be familiar with seeing their trailers. And what had happened was in 1980, Jimmy Carter had signed the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 into law, which deregulated the industry. And not to get too into the weeds, but essentially, you had the ICC, which is the Interstate Commerce Commission, that was abolished. And so freight rates were essentially eliminated. And it was the Teamsters who fought for those freight rates. And the industry itself was pretty gate kept. Like the Teamsters owned, the majority of the freight. The only freight that Teamsters didn't hold was anything agriculture, which was referred to as ag exempt. So basically produce and livestock essentially was, and that had to do with the Motor Carrier Act in 1935. And I know I'm getting in the weeds. That's FDR.
That's fine.
To combat the Great Depression, a little trucking history. And so my family's company limped on. They sold in 1984 to a company called North Penn Transfer. North Penn folded in 91 due to union contract negotiations. Essentially, they couldn't keep up with paying the very good union wages because the industry had been deregulated. And now me kind of come in the picture and growing up. Now, my father himself, he never worked for Lombard, but my dad, he didn't finish high school. He worked blue collar his whole life, doing centerless grinding, very similar to CNC machinists. So I grew up with my father, but my grandfather also, I grew up with him most of my life, who drove for Lombard for 30 plus years, who was a part owner of Lombard. And
so he had really been a part of it, like during its heyday.
Oh, absolutely. Like as a part owner, and his primary job as owner was driver, so which is like today we have owner operators, we have owners of companies who still drive their trucks. So it's really cool to know that my grandfather was the truest owner operator in the sense of the words of being a part owner of a historic company. And my grandfather growing up was like my hero. And in the city of Waterbury, where Lombard Trucking's main headquarters was. It's there's a strip plaza there now, and it's called Lombard Plaza. And because when Lombard sold, they sold the assets but retained the real estate. And so my grandfather managed that strip mall. He sold it in the mid 2000s, somewhere between 06 and 09. I can't really remember.
He got ahead of the curve before strip malls were, dying.
Yeah, before I guess maybe he had some foresight. And it's funny you bring
real
it up.
estate knowledge there.
And but what was really honorable and what really sticks out is when Lombard Plaza sold, the new owners of that property kept the name because of its historical relevance to the city.
Yeah.
And I stick with that to this day. Now, my story entering into the trucking space was in moving to Texas. I was like, I've been calling myself this online for the longest time. I was in the Marines, the lifestyle, everything about the trucking industry has been calling me.
I guess if we could pause for a sec, why were you calling yourself Lombard Trucking before you were like actually a trucker?
It's something that popped in my head. Like I made a Twitter account in 2010, and
back when.
Yeah, the only social media that existed was Facebook and MySpace. MySpace had already the nails in that coffin were shut, so it was really just Facebook. So your name on the internet was just your name, like my name, like my Facebook, Michael Lombard, like my full name. So the idea of a username, I was like, what's a username? And and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, what am I supposed to call my, like, I don't have a nickname. Nobody calls me anything. And it almost came to me immediately. I just typed in Lombard Trucking, and it stuck ever since. Cause I was like, well, this is a freaking cool historical name. So I'm going to keep it at that and get into the trucking industry. And it's so powerful because it's really aligned. It almost intertwines like DNA with what had been going on with my fitness journey. But getting into trucking is where I really started to find purpose. Sure. Again, especially not being in the military anymore, which I think is a struggle for a lot of veterans. And getting into trucking gave me purpose again because I felt like I was walking in my family's footsteps in a different way, like especially being over the road. But like I was the first Lombard to be behind the wheel since the company sold. When Lombard sold, none of my family got back into trucking. They all felt disrespected. The government came in, they screwed everything. Like none of them went back into it.
Like hard feelings. Yeah, we're not going back to that type
and that's
of thing.
kind of union rhetoric. They said, bottom feeders came in, et cetera. Like they felt betrayed in everything. And even, maybe some of the drivers did end up getting other jobs, but nobody in my family. So I was the first Lombard to drive a truck again since my grandfather. And so I really felt like was really honoring this, sense of purpose being in this industry. And then as I started making content, and with making content came a little bit more advocacy. I joined groups like, OIDA. The company I work for now is, we're members at Texas Trucking Association. So I'm in the advocacy and trying to make the industry better. And so that's kind of a little bit long and short of it, of kind of where the Lombard trucking story comes from.
I gotcha. Yeah, we'll come back to the trucking.
Yeah, and, I love that, being part of your family's lore.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's something that's lost. We don't. With so many people peeling off, it's like, that kind of those kinds of stories are dying, and I felt that it's something I'm really proud of.
For sure, generationally, it gets lost, man.
Yeah, I shied away from my family's historical identity. So I have a grandpa who, I think he was part founder of a firm called Meriwether Wilson, an accounting firm in Iowa, right? And it continued to be called Meriwether Wilson. And actually, my dad. So let me back up. My mom's dad, this is who did Meriwether Wilson, and then my dad on the other side, the Penningroth, right? He became an accountant, worked for my mom's dad, right, and then ended up marrying, his boss's daughter, essentially. But Meriwether Wilson split into their own firm, but they kept the name, right? And then my dad's firm it was called like Latta Harris, Hannon, and Penningroth, so 4 other founders. But I didn't become an accountant, so I definitely didn't follow my family's footsteps, but I do have a brother that did that.
And that's the thing, my dad owns his own business, started in 99, but my dad didn't want me and my brother anywhere near it. because my dad runs a really respectable small parts manufacturing shop. But he did, he has really good employees, but there's some employees who come around who've had issues with drugs and alcohol. It's a blue collar space.
I've had issues with drugs and alcohol, so
you're gonna catch some people who have some of those issues. And so my dad always thought, and typical kind of a little bit of his generation, they wanted, especially for like millennials growing up, it was all about going to college. He wanted better for me and my brother. He thought we were better than what he was doing, but really what my dad's doing is the crux of everything. So it's like, and he's actually voiced that before, how he kind of regrets not bringing us in, because we could have helped him expand through outside sales and building relationships. And like, if we learned like kind of that trade and stuff, but that's a different story when it comes to honor. But because, I feel like there's that gap in generations where they're like, you can do better, because this idea of going to college is how you actually level up, when we've seen that the economy's just, especially as technology's gotten better, the economy's kind of changed.
For sure. I mean, even if you just think about AI, we won't go too deep on this, but like, what are the jobs most threatened by AI currently? It's like white collar work, right? Like the people actually boots on the ground in terms of, say, like parts and stuff like that, right? Like they're probably pretty safe as far as like a robot's not coming to do that anytime soon. So
it's good payback. I mean, blue collar's the new white collar.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's about time.
What about you, Paul? Like, I guess how did your career kind of unfold?
Well, my dad was with UPS. He was a CIA agent. He met my mom while he was that.
Slip that in there.
But then he had to move back to the U.S., and his father, who was a traveling salesman, was like, hey, there's this company with brown trucks that delivers stuff, so you might want to look into them because they seem like they're growing. And so it was UPS, and my pop joined 30-year career. But at that time, you could not hire direct family. So that, as a career, was never in the offing for me and my brother.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they didn't allow you to hire direct family. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so we couldn't do that. So I would say that my career, unlike my brother, who's like a very successful corporate guy, much like my dad, was driven by curiosity. I was like the younger son that had no direction, like a Prince Harry, My brother's the William, he's got like a plan. And so I found myself, even after college, just saying, hey, what can I offer? So it was really driven by curiosity and always kind of falling into something.
Sure.
Like my first job was actually with Milliken Company that owns huge plants in South Carolina, Georgia. They made the fibers that no one else made. But I was in a plant working at night shifts, right?
Oh, wow.
And so it was like a white-collar job, but it was something that I never imagined. But it led to me moving to Miami, another corporate job, because I wanted to be in real estate in Florida. So I ended up with a really cool firm at the time, but it went bankrupt. And so I've always been driven by curiosity, reading the papers, who I knew, and in these conversations and all these things, it would be like, hey, we should be doing something. And then before you know it, I was working with someone, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so I've never got a job through a resume.
All just networking?
It's always been through happenstance and just generally let's say we're having a conversation right now and it ended up knowing someone, and then they're saying, hey, possibly we should work together. Did I think it was cool? And so it sort of germinated from there, and it's led to many different paths. So for me, I've been in many different industries across many different places. So I have this diversity of ecosystem.
Sure.
Like I'm not just like real estate or something like that. So I've always had this sort of curiosity driven background that has worked out sometimes and sometimes not. It's been a roller coaster ride. So I've had I'm like Six Flags. I mean, I've had some of the biggest ups and some of the biggest downs.
Yeah.
And so I think in my life, I've always had to be prepared for uncertainty.
Sure.
And it's when you have a family and kids, it's not always like the best.
Yeah.
But when you hit that one that puts you at the high, it's pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
When you go down, not so good. But that's how it's been driven. So I call this Act 3. So it's definitely one of those things where I'm saying, okay, let's see these last chapters, more or less like something fun, something driven by curiosity, something that I'll enjoy, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And I think for the both of you, I guess where do your wives enter the picture here?
Yeah, I'd love to tell that story. Hey, real quick though, I gotta say we got a lot in common with that. Like my current job, I have this job. Like my boss is somebody who I've been friends with on Twitter for like 5 years. Like I have I work for, and it's crazy to think about, but it's like, you know, we're one of the fastest growing freight tech companies in the industry. I'm on the marketing team. Again, and same thing. My brother had the plan. My brother speaks 5 languages, translator. Now he's a lawyer. You know, he's always had the plan where like after college I worked at Enterprise Rent a Car and then happened to get this job at a warehouse, like just with it, and then where I currently am, like with Truck Parking Club, like the only part of my resume that mattered was the fact that I was a truck driver who also made content. And just because of who I was.
If you look at my resume, people will be like, "What the fuck?" You look at my LinkedIn, people can't like.
Yeah, they're like, "Wait, you're a coach."
No, like you did this, you did like
you've done all these things.
Yeah, like can you actually do this? And but I found that it's amazing how quickly you can learn something if you take a deep dive into it very quickly by necessity.
It is interesting too. Like a lot of the people that are best at something, they're self-taught at it, right? Like they went and made that happen for themselves.
Yeah, with the exception of probably like a surgeon, and stuff like that. But really, like language or history or like even down to building woodworking though, like building decks. Like I know, a friend of mine here in Austin, she can build a deck for your backyard, and she learned it from YouTube, and it's very long thing, like any of those things. But yeah, I'd say anything that's not hyper specialized, like medical. In a lot of those ways, like surgeon, heart surgeon, you can't YouTube that stuff. But maybe one day, I don't know. But yeah, you can. It's really self-taught. It's just that inner drive that makes you want to do something.
Yeah, I guess like if we go back to this example as a surgeon, yes, you have to get like this very technical knowledge, but probably the people that are like, doing new and novel things, they are self-taught in a way, in a sense of like they're not just doing what was, taught to them, right? If that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think listening is a very important part of that. Like coming into a real estate fund where we raised a significant amount of money. I remember when we were on our sort of money gigs up in New York and sitting with the best of the best, like Brown, Harvard, MIT, and these guys were talking gibberish to me. I was well educated. I mean, I went to Washington and Lee, but I knew nothing of the space. We had kind of jumped into it. So I just said nothing because I really had nothing to say. And these guys were talking at me, but the one thing I learned was by listening, I could learn that a lot of what they're saying was full of shit. And 2, I could listen to the nomenclature, what they talked, how they acted, all this other stuff that I could take by osmosis. And another thing I learned, when you don't talk, it fucking intimidates people. Like, they're like, what the fuck's up with this guy? Like, I'd walk out of meetings, people are like, what the fuck's up with this guy?
Well, there's 2 benefits to it.
Yeah.
Because in one way, they'll be like, man, this guy must be a stoic. Or you have some people maybe, because sometimes a lot of these people you're probably sitting with, maybe have a little bit of ego. And so when you let them talk, they love it. I mean, man, you're their best friend because they finally have somebody who will just listen to them.
And it's so ego driven. People are fighting to talk at the table to get their point in. When you're just nodding, they're like, what the fuck's up with this guy? And it became a powerful tool in and of itself to shut the fuck up. And then when I did say something, like say this whole conversation went, and then I just said, maybe we should do that, they'd be like, oh shit, like this guy, like
Paul's got it.
Yeah, he so, but at the time I honestly knew nothing what was happening and learned as I went along. And so I think sometimes necessity mixed with ambition. Like in your head, you want to succeed, and you're like, I just have to learn. Does that make sense? So,
100%.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the wife stuff here in a sec, but I read a quote by, I forget who this guy was, some big time investor, and he was like, in terms of hiring people, like if I hire someone and I find them, speaking confidently about something they don't fucking know what they're talking about, they're done. That's like the number one red flag as far as like get this person out of my organization, right? And
well, there's sometimes that necessity. We feel like we have to talk from a place of knowledge, and sometimes we don't know, right?
Yeah.
I found it was powerful just to not say anything. Yeah. At least in that time. Yeah.
For sure. Let's come back to the wives.
Yeah.
I would love to hear each of your stories about like when your wives came to the picture, how'd you meet, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite story. It's my favorite love story to tell because she's definitely been the rock, the foundation, been the absolute most ride or die you can ask for when it comes to relationships. We met. I was still in the Marines. We first met in 2010. So this is, we're going on 16 years of dating, this August. We technically, I think we were like became official in September, but the day we met was August 26th. So like 08, which is 0826. And so we just used that as like the beginning of our relationship which is the day we met. But she, this is classic, not to age myself too much to any of the younger folks who might be listening, but she DM'd me on Facebook. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we're from the same city. We both she went to Sacred Heart, I went to Holy Cross, so we both went to Catholic high school in the same town. We knew a lot of the same people growing up. She's 2 years older than me, but we never met in high school. But she went to college in Connecticut. She was a cheerleader, and so small D3 school, and so all the athletes kind of knew each other. My cousin played baseball there, so mutual friends and stuff. That's you.
We'll cut this out.
Yeah.
No, do not disturb.
Which phone is that? This one? Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But so we.
It's still recording?
Yeah, it's still recording. Okay. So my cousin's having a 4th of July party in 2010. My wife was looking at the invite list, seeing what guys were going to be there, and found my profile and decided to shoot me a message. And
was this before or after the mullet?
This is while I was in the Marines, so I had a nice fade, higher fade haircut. And she DM'd me. She's like, "Are you Steve's cousin? Said, are you going to his 4th of July party?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know yet." And I didn't end up going to the 4th of July party because we went to 29 Palms for a training exercise, but the dates of when I was going weren't like confirmed yet. So I didn't end up going to the 4th of July party. I met her in August when I came home for pre-deployment leave. So I was home for about 2 weeks-ish or something. And sort of definitely like a love at first sight. We went to the beach one weekend in Mesquamaket, Rhode Island. And, we spent the whole day together. And, I just knew it. Like, and I was 20 years old, was definitely not ready to meet the one. Like, that wasn't even a thought in my mind of meeting the one or anything like that.
You're just like fucking around as a 20-year-old.
Yeah. I'm 20 years old. I'm spending my weekends in Myrtle Beach, blowing my entire paycheck, having a great time with, my best, some of my best friends, my brothers, guys I went to Afghanistan with. But I knew, and all my year, there's a long time between, me being 20 and 36. And I've definitely matured over the years in so many different ways, but that was the most mature decision I made, was having that confidence and knowing like I could keep going and living the life I could, but if I lay it down and I lock down this woman now, I know I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life.
For sure.
If I didn't, would I have still had quote unquote fun? Sure. Like, who doesn't have fun when they're single at 20, 21, 22 and stuff like that? Yeah, sure. But is what would be better? Long-term happiness or having fun? Long-term happiness. And the payoff was definitely worth it. And, she stayed with me throughout, we dated, she came to the Marine Corps Ball that year, stayed with me all throughout Afghanistan. And what's crazy and really interesting, what's really powerful about our love story too is, I didn't stay in the Marines. I got out at the end of my contract, 4 years, got out in 2012. Part of me debated, there was a time where I did want to stay in. I'm wearing a shirt that kind of inspired me to stay in. I went to Water Survival Instructor School in 2011. Something I was really proud of. This is a, really difficult, like B school to become a water survival instructor. I was in it with a couple recon guys, I was around some high caliber people, kind of like going to correct. Like it's the first, I was outside of my unit and, so I had options to stay in, like career options, but at 22, all my friends I deployed with got out. I think if I stayed in, I'm not sure if my wife would have went for it at that point, because if I either went to Quantico or California, wherever I went for my next duty station, I don't think she would have been ready to leave Connecticut at that point, but she was ready to leave in 2019. So again, like had to wait on her time. So, and I did. I wanted to get out. I wanted to be with her. I wanted to live with her because this is the relationship I wanted. And each of us, like, we've had probably the best partnership you can ask for. We've both, because we operate just like we operate just like a partnership in a business where we're two individual people, but we've complemented each other in the best ways. And we've had different seasons. She graduated undergrad as I was starting, and so she was, she was working while I was playing a little club lacrosse and in parties and stuff. So we complement each other back and forth. It was tough while I was in my undergrad because she was out of her undergrad. So it's like these new friends I was making are people she really knows. But then after school, and then she ended up getting a job in New York City. So she commuted, but we had done long distance before, but we've always made it work. We've always been a team. But that's when she's entered the picture, and she's been a rock. She's been the foundation. I mean, when I was over the road trucking, I'd be gone 2 to 3, 4 weeks at a clip sometimes. Really depends on the schedule. But we've held it down. She's been, and like any the thing is when it comes to relationships is, I get it. I got the last chopper out of Nam. I never had to deal with online dating and everything like that. But they take work, but the work is, you get an immediate reward from the work. And by the work, I'm talking about communicating, being honest, just having integrity, like all those things like that works. For some people, maybe either escaping responsibility or something, or fear of commitment, I guess can get in the way. But being in a relationship is the most beneficial, because being in a relationship with my wife since 2010 did like that roller coaster. Were there ups? Absolutely. Were there downs? For sure. But a lot of the downs is what I was feeling internally and maybe professionally. But having her along the way is exactly why I'm here right now, getting to have awesome conversations like this, in a job, in a career, in an industry, in a community. If I was the same guy I was in 2014, even though I was still with it, like this, Mike Lombard in 2014 is not going to Correct Fitness. I can tell you that, because I wouldn't think I deserved to be in that room. But being with somebody like my wife, she has built me into somebody who does know that I'm deserving, worthy, all those good things. And I've needed her in that aspect to kind of teach me that in a lot of ways. But yeah, well, I know that was a little bit long, but it's really important to emphasize that, like, it's just relationships are really special. She's been the rock. She's been the foundation of it all. She's a huge part of my inspiration, motivation in what I do. And that's why I root for love in every single corner for anybody. And when it comes to a relationship you're in, go all in. Don't half-ass it. I went all in when I was 20 years old, and it's the best decision.
It's been a good investment. Yeah. Before we get over to Paul, something I want to come back to here a little bit is, so you mentioned, like, in 2014, like, Mike Lombard wouldn't feel like he belongs in a room with a bunch of very high-performing athletes. And is that something that you had in the wake of, like, coming out of the military, in whatever way you may have been affected by that? I don't know how that affected, self-confidence or something like that. Or is that something that you struggled with even, say, like, growing up?
Definitely not growing up, because, like, growing up, it definitely had a lot of confidence. I played in a cool band in high school. I swam in high school, was really active, really outgoing. In the Marine Corps, same way, like, very motivated, high confidence, everything. But transitioning out of the military, and this is something I think veterans struggle with a lot, which is purpose and identity. Because really, when you think about it, look at any picture of the Marines, their uniform, the title of Marine, like, that's like, you don't get any higher than that. Like, you don't get, especially like when you're joining and when you're in, it's something to be very, very proud of, like, and so when you're not that anymore, when all of a sudden that goes away, and also you're not with any of those people you went to Afghanistan with, you're not with all these people you grind with all the time. When that goes away, that identity stripped from you. College was sort of a Band-Aid, because I played club lacrosse, we had fun, I joined a fraternity, but there was still a huge chunk that's missing. And so when that purpose and identity went away, so much, when that purpose and identity goes away, so does that confidence and like my belief in myself, because you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Like, you don't feel
there's this
deserving.
Void, right? That's not filled.
Yeah, there's this void where you feel as though this part of you is now missing that you will never get back.
Yep.
And so how could you? So if I was to walk into a place like Correct, I'd immediately be like, I'd get flustered. I'd be like, I don't belong. Like, I have no purpose here. I have nothing in common with anybody. These people aren't going to like me, because just this huge chunk of identity and self was just in the past.
Yeah.
thinking that it was unattainable again. That even during that time of college where I was in that Band-Aid, I would have said, this isn't worth it. I'd probably make fun of it. I'd probably like, these guys think they're everything. Like I would scorn it. Like,
Yeah.
And which, as I've learned in life, like anybody who scorns something or is angry or is judgmental, it's obviously, any accusation like that's always a confession. That type of mentality is just internal shame and guilt,
Yep.
which is what it would have been. So it's definitely linked to an identity and purpose crisis that I had been struggling with, that I had struggled with for nearly 8 years. And it's a road, and it still doesn't go away completely. Like there's still days where I'm like, man, I could be, I'd be 2 years away from retirement. I'd be this rank in the Marines. I'd be doing X, Y, Z.
Like all the ways that you weren't perfect and fell short of perfection, right?
Yeah, and especially I see the caliber that I operate now with marathon and Ironman and all this stuff, and it's like, wow, like I had no idea I could ever even do this, and it's like, imagine if I was still in the Marines now in this current form. But obviously, you can what if anything to death. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's definitely a purpose and identity crisis that stems from getting out of the military.
Sure. And we're gonna come over to Paul.
I'd like to say like you're a very mature man. Particularly with your marriage, but some of the identity stuff. I can date you on that in terms, I've been with my wife, I think, 39 years. We met in 1988. And so I think it was important, like when I say your maturity was like at a very young age to say, I need someone to ride and die with. That's a very mature thing. Like most young guys don't think about that. They're thinking, is she hot? Does she represent me well? Like, I need this. And to think long term is important, because what you'll find, like I said, in the roller coaster rides of your life, your young life, that you need someone who's always going to be there for you, right? Like whether you're on a high or whether you're low, you always have a foundation in your life. So congratulations that you found that person, but even that you knew that going in. So it's a very important thing. So I would say with my wife for 39 years, it's been one of our successes was knowing when I met her that she was that type of a person for me. Because prior to that, I had met some very shallow people, right? I was in Miami at the time, and you're like, hey, this is fucking awesome. But then I'd realize, like, we'd go out, and then the bill came, and they're like, it's on you. And I'm like, it's fucking $3,000. It was my salary, And I'm like, I can't hang. I just can't do this. And so... But Lynn was different in the sense that she came from a wealthy family, didn't act like it, but she always was very grounded. Like on our first date, I actually forgot my wallet. So we went out in Miami Beach.
Like actually?
I was trying to be a baller. I'm like ordering drinks, blah, 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 blah. They come, they lop the bill down. I'm like, fuck, I forgot my wallet. Like, this may be it. And she was like, no, I got it. And she never looked at me like, you mother, like one of these Miami girls would have dropped me. But anyway, to the love side of that, she happened to be at my best friend's birthday party in Miami. And she just happened to be coming down from New York because she was in New York at the time. I saw her across the room. Someone took a Polaroid. She was with someone, and I have it somewhere. But I remember seeing her within that same eye's view and saying, wow, she looks cool. Like that. I'd like to meet her. What was crazy is my best friend, another guy, asked her out. And I was like, fuck. But he's like, hey, come with me on the first date. Like because he didn't know her well enough. So we went out. He got sidetracked with another girl. And then I ended up with Lynn. And it was like, since that time, we've been.
You swooped in.
Well, it wasn't even a swoop in. It was like a kind of shimmy in. Yeah. And then we ended up being together since that time. And so from a love aspect, I would say that from your point of view, it's great that you found that person, because I think for me, that's what's been the most important thing, is to have someone who's going to be there, like when you're balling and it's fun and your wife's there. And then when you're low, like going through an identity crisis, that she's your biggest cheerleader. Like, no, dude, you got it. I see it in you. And without that, that's why you see like marriages break up like instantly. And so, yeah, that's the love story. It's 39 years and rolling, man.
It's a long time.
We still laugh while we're at the movies. I'm like, fuck, we've been together a long time, you know?
And it's great. And as you said, like, I was, 280 pounds at my heaviest. And
that was like 2020?
2018.
2018?
Or, 2018, I was at my heaviest at 280. And, like, not a skip and a beat. Never, never once was, critiqued it or anything. Because I always worked hard and everything. But even at some of those low points, times where I was really defeated. I've had times where I've been literally, crying my eyes out to her, like, where am I going?
Yeah.
Why did I get out of the Marines? All this stuff, and has always been there. And I appreciate the compliment on, that's why, I tell her all the time, and I tell people, like, she's 100% my soulmate, but we're talking about something really God inspired here, because again, at 20 years old, with not thinking about wife or the one or wanting to settle down in that aspect, but for, like, it was just like I can't even explain the feeling, because it was in my mind and my gut. Is like when I looked at her, and when I looked her in the eyes when we were at the beach in Mesquamaket, there was shit, like, I can't even explain the feeling, because it wasn't just like butterflies or something, but it was just like, it just like hit me right there. Like, it was almost like
a lock to a key type of thing.
Like the key went in the lock, like straight from God, like straight down from God. Like, she's it. Like, there was no voice or anything that said it, but it was just like this like life defining moment that was telling me she's the one, above all, my other, immaturities of wanting to go out and party and all this and be all high energy. My identity at the time was Jersey Shore. This is 2010. I got a high fade. I grew, I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm Italian from Waterbury. Yeah. I used to wear deep V-necks. Literally, my identity was freaking Jersey Shore. That's, Myrtle Beach, vodka Red Bulls, let's go. And in the height of that, boom, I'm struck by lightning when I'm looking in the eyes of this girl in Mesquamaket at 20 years old, which is why I say it's God inspired, and it has been the absolute best.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I meet a lot of guys at the gym that the opposite is true. I spend too much time in the sauna when they're like, "Hey, Paul, like, can I tell you something?" I'm like, "Oh shit,
sure, man.
It's 200 degrees, and it tends to be the opposite, not what you're saying, right? Like, it didn't work out because it was based off something more short term."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I haven't found the one, but I look up to both of your love stories here. That sounds sustainable, right, and healthy, and like something that makes you more of the best parts of yourself, right, and to have an easier time getting out of maybe some of the lesser aspects of self that crop up as you go through like life difficulties and stuff like that.
Well, I'd say it saves energy too, because if you have like someone who is behind you, and you're like, if you're always on the make, man, that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of time you got to put into, like,
for sure.
I see the dudes that on it, they're always like, and it's like, they're like, that one broke up with me. It's a lot of energy. They're planning for tonight, tomorrow night, like, that didn't work out. It's like, that was focused on other ambitions, other areas. Holy shit, you would not know where you could go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's a good thing, man.
Decision fatigue. Keep it simple in some ways, right? So that you can put your energy.
But it's not easy. You were lucky too. There's a stroke, like you said, lock and key, God. That's not always the case, right? There's an element of you use God, but there's some element of the universe was on your side.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
I want to come back to, so you went to college, but that was after the Marines. I guess, like, what brought you into the Marines in the first place?
Oh yeah, I love telling the story because it's, I wound up at college, but I'll never forget, senior year of high school, having the, I'm applying to colleges, paper applications, shout out, and not to, aging myself again.
That's crazy.
I'm closer in age than you think. And I was filling out college applications, and I saw the price per semester, and I saw commas in the numbers, and I was like, I only saw those numbers in like math class, and I remember asking my mom, she was like doing dishes or something. I was like, I was like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to pay for this? Like, where does this come from? I know, like, you're not going to be paying for this because, like, I see what the numbers are. They got freaking commas in them and a lot of zeros. And my mom started explaining to me what student loans were. And, she's like, oh, you got to take out student loans. I was like, what? A loan? I'm 17. She's talking to me about loans. and like struck with fear, like absolute anxiety, like thinking about the idea of taking loans. Because again, I had at 17 years old, no plan, no idea what I wanted to do. Like I remember I just wrote my first 10-page paper for a political science class, and I was like, wait, I gotta go. I'm gonna graduate high school and do this again. Like I'm gonna keep doing this. And I went into full panic mode. I was like, and I still filled out these applications and everything because I knew I had to, but I was like really, really struggling with like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I supposed to study or something? And my mom's like, you should go to school for history or something and be a history teacher. And I'm like, I don't want to be a teacher. Like in my mind, I was like, become a teacher. I was like, teachers make whatever. It wasn't, I didn't feel
Not great. Yeah.
Didn't feel it in my gut. And I was actually at a Wendy's on Wolcott Road in Waterbury.
Wendy's.
Eating a Baconator in my anxiety, and all of a sudden, my friend Kevin, by the way, who we moved to Texas with, he had graduated a year before me, and he had joined the Marines. And so he walks into this Wendy's with the other recruiters. They're all wearing dress blues. He recognized me, come down, and we didn't know each other that well in high school. We were both, I did theater. I did some, the fall plays. He was in theater, so like we knew who each other were, but we weren't like friends. But he recognized me. He came over, and sales 101. This guy, he came right over and he was asking, "Hey, how's school? What are you up to? Swim season starting soon. Like, what are you excited about? Just talk to me about everything except the Marines. Like, didn't bring it up once." Anything like that. Was just asking about me, everything. He's like, "Where are you applying?" I was like, "Oh, so, Southern Yukon, blah, blah, blah." All the places, boom. We talked for 10, 15 minutes. And then, him and the recruiters, the food got ready. They were about to leave. It was just like, "Well, dude, it's freaking great seeing you, blah, blah." He's like, I know you're applying to other stuff, but, if it's on your radar, this is my recruiter's number, give him a call. Yeah. Boom. Like anxiety just went right away. I was like, I found it. I found my ticket out. And my brother was in the Navy at the time, so it's not like the military was completely out of the question, but that was like it right there. Like when he handed me that card, and this is in, I want to say, November of 2007. December of 2007, I was signing my contract. Like, sure. Still, like I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, this is what I wanted to commit to. Like, this is finally, I got my ticket out of college. So it's like, for as much as I'm definitely, very, I call myself definitely a patriot, love America, love my people. I'm proud to have worn the uniform, but I didn't join out of some like
sense of duty to my country.
Yeah,
or
some sense of duty, or because of 9/11 or anything like that. That was really pushing me to do it. Like, it was my way out of college for sure. And went my job in the Marines. I was in the artillery. My job was fire direction control. I chose the artillery field because I knew if I was gonna join the Marines, I didn't want it to be like some computer job. I was like, It's at least got to be, tough. And I'm a big Napoleon guy. He was an artillery officer himself. So artillery, like who doesn't want to be around cannons? I'm 17 years old, picking my job. Hell yeah, cannons. But I ended up going to college because at this time, I had the GI Bill, and I knew that college wouldn't be an inherent cost. But again, this leads into that identity crisis. Is still getting out at 22. I'm not thinking career. I'm not thinking future. I'm not thinking about what I can or what I'm supposed to do or anything like that. I just knew, but I had this, all expenses paid, free pass to go to school, and I guess maybe I'll figure it out while I go to school. So that's what got me to the University of New Haven after I got out of the Marines. But that's a story of getting in. Was one lucky day at Wendy's.
One lucky day at Wendy's. And what about you, Paul? Have you had any phases of your life where you had some form of like an identity crisis, or were really in a rapid, period of change as far as like your own self-understanding?
I think I'm always in an identity crisis. When my father moved every 3 years, I had to move schools every 3 years. And so, like, the hardest one was my senior year. I had worked so hard to get to the top of the pyramid, right? So I became president of the school, captain of the basketball team. Finally, the girls I wanted to talk to were talking to me.
Well, your Dad
comes home and he says, "We're moving." And he didn't give me the opportunity to stay. This was in New Hampshire, so we were in Virginia within a couple weeks, and I was in a new high school with 0 friends, right? And I didn't talk to anyone for 3 months, right? So it was, and then when I entered college, it was a college I knew nothing about at the time, and it was a culture I knew nothing about. And so again, it took me 2 years, even in college, to like even identify with me even being there.
Did you have any fear as well, as far as like you built yourself up into that position, as far as like captain of the basketball team,
Yeah.
and like I've kind of got things socially where I want them,
Yeah.
and then to just have that immediately taken away from you? Like, did you have any sense of like, I don't want to try, in some sense, like try to have that again, out of like a fear of that it can just
Oh, so
be
it's
taken
a funny
away?
question. I was just home, and my mother had a cabinet of all the stuff that, from the 80s. And so she said, look through it. And when I got to the new school, they said, write like a poem or something about your life. And it's the only thing I took out of the cabinet, but it was just what you're saying.
Mm.
It was a poem about like having the rug out of your life pulled out and just saying, you know what, I'm done. Like I'm not going to talk to people.
I'm retreating.
Yeah. And then how that gradually changed, because I was resisting change versus like going into it. But that's all part of losing your identity. So I think from that point on to like transferring into corporate stuff based off curiosity, I'm always in an identity crisis actively, like, because I'm entering spaces that I've never been in. Like from a career track, I've had specialties. I'm good with people. And so I'm a good deal guy. So, but that's a soft skill. That's not a hard skill. So people don't look at that as a skill per se until once you're in an organization, they're like, holy shit. But
You can do
outside
that.
of
Yeah.
that, softly, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm good with people. Like, yeah, whatever. It's not like you have an engineering,
Yeah,
AI,
yeah.
whatever. So to your question, every sort of path that I've had, or success or failure, has been in something new. So when you say like identity crisis, it's always there, because you'll find too, once you hit that goal, you check that box, Marines for you, maybe some other parts of your career. And once it's over, you literally, as most guys, have an identity crisis, because you're like, now who am I? And you see friends that have like linear careers, like lawyer, attorney, accountant. You might in private hear them say like, I hate this fucking shit. But at a party, they're confident as hell. Hey, Bob, what do you do? Accountant. People are like, dude, awesome. What do you do? I'm actively thinking about like, who is this guy? Like, until you're successful. I found everyone's a doubter until you hit a level of success. Johnny Depp, they were always with you, man.
Yeah.
We were always there for you.
It's like support versus congratulations. Right?
100%. So I'm always in an identity crisis because I don't know what's next. It's always uncertain. And so it's something you have to live with. And I've gotten better at it. Like, I've gotten better at saying, when I'm in a room, my currency is me. It's not what I do. So it was always based around what I did, what money I had, what car I drove, what neighborhood I lived in. I fell for that fallacy. And so now it's like my currency is, I look at it the opposite way. I'm in the room. I
have value.
I'm $100 here, dude. I'm a hundo. I'm nothing less. So you can pitch your shit, and I know it's all a fallacy for you too, because even in your certainty of life, it's probably uncertain too. I worked for Meta. 8,000 people got laid off. Now what are you going to tell the people at the party that knew you as the Meta guy?
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, you're not that guy.
Yeah.
Now what? So that rolls into possibly like where we get into our fitness journeys, because I realize as part of that currency, it's my own personal self-fitness, how I look, how I feel, how I enter a room. And part of that is based around being in the best shape possible at a high level with guys like that. So
like you're respecting yourself, right?
I'm respecting myself, so therefore you should respect me in a subtle way, and not overtly. I'm never in anyone's face, but it's like, if you can look at me and say, okay, you know what I mean? So I'm always actively in identity crisis. I don't think I've been in phases where I fall the cat's ass because I had something going, it was highly successful, and I'm like, dude, I'm the man. But I also remember what happened to me in high school. So I'm always
Just the
living
rug
with
pulled
that
out from you.
uncertainty that that same situation could happen again,
Yeah.
right? So that's something I have to deal with in my life, is this like constant identity crisis, but always trying to zenly around say, I'm the currency, right?
And what was the process for you as far as coming to terms with, like, for example, you are really good with people, right?
Mhm.
This is like a very standout quality, right? And like, but coming to terms with, if I'm in the room, like I am the currency. Like, what was that process
I can't wait
like?
to use that. I just gotta say, like that's a
If that makes sense, because I imagine, yeah, like you were saying,
Powerful
there were times where you had some form of
Oh, and like
identity.
I used in my business life when I was sitting in these Wall Street firms and we're doing the pitches, I felt less than because I placed my currency on my position, what I brought to the table, what suit I was wearing, because guys are like, what watch do you have, and all this stuff. What
Yep.
hotel are you staying at? Like all this superficial shit that in the end doesn't matter, you realize. So I think it's been an evolution over time when you fight with identity crises, that the tropes out there that the gurus say are always based in truth, but you have to individualize them. Like, I think what I felt like when I joined on it was like, I belong here, man. And I don't need to overtly like try to join someone's group.
Yeah.
If I show that I do the work, show up, be respectful, be nice, be kind, be empathetic, people will
They'll figure that out.
They'll
Yeah.
figure out with me, and we'll figure out together, and we'll join together. A past me might have been trying to be like, oh, can I fucking work out? Like,
Yeah.
can I do? And then I've realized like that's not always a great thing. So I always go back to Zen, like I am the currency, and
Yeah.
I have to feel confident in myself. I don't care what anyone does, whether I'm in a room of doctors, Wall Street guys, that someone may be looking at me and be like, I fucking would like to look at that like that at 60, right? And that's my currency.
Yeah.
But I also believe that I'm capable of doing anything because I've always had to pull the rabbit out of the hat. And I've been low where that rabbit didn't look like it was coming out. I'm reaching in there, but I've always been able to pull it out. So I have to believe. I think Dr. Ellen Langer from Harvard says it. Certainty in your uncertainty. Okay? Like you have to have certainty in your uncertainty. So that's a mantra that I wake up every morning.
Yeah, like you're never going to get beyond uncertainty.
Never. It seemingly is all. It's seemingly there for people who
You're never going to
seemingly
fully
have it.
arrive.
But
right?
then one black swan event in life, as we know, whether it's health, whether it's an interact law from Congress that can take your business away.
Yeah,
Literally.
exactly.
Like lawmakers are like, check the box. And then you're like, we're out of fucking business, man.
Yeah.
Like this family lineage. So I always look at it like we all live in uncertainty. But when you experience it directly each and every day, you have to find strength and certainty in your uncertainty. Okay. And I find that even people with large amounts of money are uncertain because once you get it, you always think the bag's going to leave you. I don't care what you say. Like no matter how much you have, you always think this may not be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's why they like want more, right? It's based out of fear, right? So that goes back to I'm always in a crisis, dude. Yeah.
Always in a state of change and
always.
Yeah.
But I've learned that life is like that anyway. And so you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll hop back over to Mike here. As far as your journey and like being in an identity crisis, like post-Marines, and I say you got pretty overweight, right? And I guess probably during that you knew that that was going on, right? But you probably couldn't find your way out of it. I guess what was the initial point where you kind of started getting out of this like rut and confusion?
Yeah, and there's kind of like I love how you refer to parts of your life as like Act 1, 2, and 3 because there's kind of been some different acts like along the fitness journey I've had because starting out like I'm at a place now that is not where I was trying to be, like, with especially when it comes to Ironman and triathlon, like that was never, that wasn't even a thought, a blip on the radar. Anything, neither was marathon. But what it, the kind of the sort of rock bottom moment in it was in 2018, and this is why I emphasize so much about starting today, not waiting till Monday, not waiting till New Year's Day. That's where I've definitely learned that philosophy really well. Was in November of 2018, one of my really good friends that I went to Afghanistan with, Matt Brown, he passed away suddenly in middle of November. I believe it might have been November 18th or 19th, right around that time frame. I have to go into the DMs on Facebook when I got the message from another kid from our unit. And I mean, that was straight out of left field. Like, since I got out of the Marines and since we got back from deployment, there have been a handful of guys, every year, one or two a year, either, drugs, alcohol, who had really fallen off. But, some guys, end up on heroin, and you see that happen, and it's heartbreaking, some car accidents, and it's just like, and it smacks you. But this one was like totally out of the blue, because Matt and I, we talked all the time. We would always send each other funny Snapchats, and we'd send memes and stuff, and it was like lasting respect. He's an Alabama guy, always jacked. Him and I in Afghanistan, like and I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but the only time I was able to bench 315 was at our makeshift gym in Afghanistan, which was a pretty cool gym, by the way. I got to say, all the weights were in kilograms because the British were there before us. So like, it was this real cool prison yard type gym that we had over there. And so, so many good memories with this guy drinking in the barracks and stuff. It was definitely a huge blow. And I remember hearing about it, and like, I was crushed, like absolutely. I did not know what to think. Like, the thoughts going through my mind was, if it can happen, like, am I next?
Yeah.
Like, this was something like, because, how he
seemed invulnerable, right?
Yeah, like how he passed away was definitely an accident. I mean, I know he was, he definitely had some issues with alcohol. As far as I knew that there was, he was prescribed a sleep aid, but I mean, I take, trazodone or something. I'm not sure what it was, for it, but I know he's prescribed a sleep aid, and essentially he didn't wake up one morning. That's kind of what happened. And, so was it intentional? We don't think so. Like, I don't think so. In my heart, I don't think that was his intention at all. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh my, like, can I be next? Like, could this be the road I'm on? Because like I said, I'm working in a warehouse at the time. I'm driving a forklift. I don't know what my future is going to hold. Like,
you're down, you're overweight. Right?
Yeah, I don't know where I'm engaged. I'm supposed to be getting married. I need to, I need to be. I'm 28 years old, and I felt like I was 48 years old. Like, and if you look at pictures, I probably looked 48. And when that happened, it was, I had this wrestle of emotions, and I remember stepping on the scale, seeing 278 pounds, looking in the mirror, couldn't, just looking at how my cheeks looked. And all I can think of, okay, if I could talk to Matt, if I can have a conversation with Matt, tell him how I'm feeling right now, what would he tell me to do? And I know exactly what it was. He's got this, he's got this Alabama accent, and I know he'd go, you gotta go pick some stuff up, man. He would say, like, fucking go work. Like, he would tell
get your
me,
shit together.
Pick up some weights, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I knew, like, if I could have the conversation with him, what would he say? And he wouldn't say, stay sad, keep feeling like garbage, get blackout drunk. He would say, go bang some weights, just like we used to. And like, that's what I knew I needed to do. I didn't know anything about fitness or health. Like, in the Marines, like, you work out and you PT and all that stuff, but we don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about running. I don't know anything about how to lose weight, nutrition, none of that. But I knew that, because I grew up with a super high metabolism, swam all my life. Like, I never really worried about it until, like, especially getting out of college. Like, I graduated college probably in 2016 I was still probably 235, 240-ish.
And how tall are you? Like 6 foot?
5'11". Yeah, 5'11".
Yeah.
And then 2018, I'm 280. And this is just, and I have a job where I'm on my feet. It's not like I'm like at a desk all day. Like, I'm always moving around, counting pipe, doing stuff, moving boxes, packing boxes. Like, so I didn't have an inactive type job, but my lifestyle just was was, drinking 3 times a week, eating out, not grocery shopping, just living for the weekend.
It is interesting to me, like in the sense that now you've done these crazy endurance events, right? And I think you talked earlier about, having such an identity while you were in the military, and then there was like this void. And I view like this like overeating, right, as like it is still a way of like filling this void in a not a positive way, but
food was definitely a comfort in a lot of ways. Like if I was in a bad mood,
like you're trying to solve the same problem in all these things, right?
100%. And so that's the first thing I started doing. I said, you know what, and I knew this from because it's crazy, because in the Marines, like I would get up to like 198, and then we go on a field op for 2 weeks, and then I'd come back and I'd be 185 because you're not drinking and you're out and you're on your feet. So like in my mind, I'm like, I can lose weight very quickly. All I need to do is just start exercising again. And obviously that was a little bit different, but there was a CrossFit gym. And again, this is why I took the path of least resistance. There was a CrossFit gym. There's 2 ways I had to get home from this warehouse. No matter what, you had to pass that gym. No matter which direction I took home, you had to pass it. And there were days where I did, and I would, because I got to the warehouse early, 6:30, between 6:30 and 7, depending on when I need to be there, and then left a little bit after 5. There was a 5:30 class at this CrossFit gym. There's days I did go home, felt so guilty, went and took the 6:30. But that's the first thing I did, was I need to get, movement. Movement was the first thing. It's group fitness. It was a CrossFit gym, so I didn't need to plan the workout. I just needed to show up, and that's it. And I had to start that habit. And I did that for months, and barely, not that much weight really came off in those first couple months. From there, the coach, the owner of that gym, started building a relationship with me. Like, he saw that I was showing up. Like, I stayed. I was there over 60 days. He starts talking to me spring in 2019. He's like, what are you doing outside of here? He's like, because I'm getting stronger. I'm putting up heavier power cleans.
So
and all
like
that
big,
stuff.
yeah.
Like, he's noticing progress. He's like, what are you doing outside of here? What are you eating? And I was like, Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. Customers bring, whatever. The HVAC guys bring grinders for lunch. Just like nothing. Like, I don't know. I eat out all the time. He's like, and he starts giving me some pointers. He's like, dude, start grocery shopping, XYZ. He's like, you're doing really well. This will get you stronger, so to speak. Like, telling me, he's like, this is how you can level up. And so I started grocery shopping, and Monday, so like that, the nutrition started to enter, and enter the phase. And those 2 habits, I built and sustained those 2 habits. And as I kept leveling up, now I'm 6 months in, weight's coming off. By the time I get married in 2019, I lose an initial, 40 pounds for, in a year. So it's going good, down 280, 240. And then right before my wedding, I was really down. I'd have to go back and remember, but I mean, like, cause I kind of crashed diet a little bit before my wedding. So I was like, sub 230 at a certain point, but then some weight came back, honeymoon, but really weight started to stop mattering. Long story short, those I started building those habits, and then I started drinking less intentionally because this gym was so great. Because as a community, I was like, well, I'm not going to go out on Friday because I want to go to the Saturday morning workout. So I cut back on a day of drinking. So the alcohol started to get reduced. And then flash forward, COVID happens, the gym shuts down. I have, my mom gave me her Peloton because she got a hip replacement. So cardio starts entering life again. So I start incorporating the Peloton. I still work in the warehouse. I never stopped going to work during COVID. Peloton entered the picture. That became a way. Kept doing that. By the time, and then this starts phase 2. Phase 2 is when I was going over the road. So I make this good progress, getting ready to go over the road summer of 2020. I've lost this decent chunk of weight, and now I've got this fear. It's like, wow, I have this good progress, but now I'm about to do a job that kills people. My grandfather had his first heart attack when he was 50, before I was born. His father died from a heart attack. His father was also a driver. So I'm about to enter one of the most unhealthy industries.
Yeah, just sitting all day, isolation in a sense, right?
Sedentary. The gym was going, everything was going away. What can I do? I buy David Goggins' first book, Can't Hurt Me. And I started reading it while I was in CDL school. And then I finished it while I was over the road with my trainer. And it flipped a key in my brain to where, this isn't even about weight and being healthy anymore. I have to be an outlier. Like, I have to be uncommon amongst the uncommon, so to speak. And just this, and now it ties into trucking. When it comes to 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 condense David Goggins' book, the book basically tells you, cut out the BS. You're wasting your time. Like, you have the time. It's a real, it shares his testimony, the testimonies of other people. You have to make it fit your lifestyle, no matter what it is, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a driver. He doesn't mention drivers, but it's like, whatever fitness looks like, you have to make it a part of what your lifestyle is. It's not going to be conventional. And so flip the key. And now when it comes to driving, you're able to legally drive 11 hours a day in a 14-hour window. So you have a 14-hour working clock. To get those hours back, you need to be shut down for 10. So, to do a 10-hour break. So in my mind, because of reading the Goggins book, is if I wasn't driving, I had to move. But reading the book made me want to get really into running. Yeah. And obviously everything was going away. Gym going away, Peloton going away, all that's going away. Running, you need shoes and land. So it's just like.
That is the great thing about running. Yeah. It's minimal setup there. Yeah.
Minimalist stuff. And his book, obviously, he's an ultra guy. So I knew it's like I've got to get into running. So even if I only because there's some days you're not moving right after that 10 hours is up. You have days where you're shut down, sometimes 10, 14, depending on where you're at in your delivery, et cetera. So it's like you're not always just starting the truck up after 10 hours. But as soon as that yellow tab was pulled, I had Goggins in my brain. So no matter what, I was going for a run. And it was hard. It was hard to drive 500-600 miles and then pull that yellow tab and then go for a 3-4 mile run. Very, and then do it again the next day. Yeah. But it's like, but it became a form of necessity because I knew, because at this point I knew it was for my life. One, because the job can kill you, and two, I needed to be this outlier, like the book says. Like his book says, you should be an outlier. You should want to be uncommon. Nobody else is doing it. Rise above it. That's what it preaches. And so that's like phase 2. This starts act 2. Act 1 was I lose my friend. I need to make a change in my lifestyle. Act 2 is I'm going over the road. I need to, now it's life or death, but also I should try to rise and be great. And that's why marathons started entering. Like, if I really want to make a statement and really be somebody and lead by example, I should.
And also prove to myself, I can do hard things.
I can do it. Because in the book, he obviously talks about certain people who have high demand jobs and they're also ultra runners and do incredible stuff. And same thing with him and how he lost, his whole testimony. So in my mind, I see these testimonies now, something I've never really seen before, other testimonies, that influenced me. I'm like, I can do this. Like, there's no reason why I can't. And so the idea of training for marathons does it. As I'm getting healthier and healthier, again, I get encouraged by a friend of mine. He goes, you need to be making content about this. My buddy Will, he's up in DFW, kid I went to high school with. You need to be making content. Get on TikTok. You should start a podcast. And me, I don't know anything about it. Especially when it comes to content, I don't know anything about making content, like filming myself doing.
You're just like me.
Not just like, hey, when I'm on vacation, like here's my pictures from vacation. That was the extent of social media. He's like, you need to start doing that. Well, doing that, when you start making content and a few people start seeing you, then you feel like you owe. It's like, well, they're going to be like, did he run today? So you have a
responsibility, right?
Yeah, you have this responsibility. And so I started documenting it more, but also the healthier and healthier I got, the more and more I did want to make the content, talk about it, because as I started to just, especially when it comes to something like running is there's something deeply philosophical about what it does for your brain, and just like so much brain fog goes away, and the healthier and healthier I got, the more and more I wanted to be involved in stuff in the industry. It's what gave me the confidence to end up buying a truck. I bought a truck, I became a contractor for a motor carrier, so I was a leased on owner operator. I don't want to get too into the weeds of contracting and stuff like that, and how it worked with owning your truck, because there's a difference between having your own authority, etc. Like I said, that's all trucking economics, but like getting fit made me want to buy my own truck. But it started, it's when I first went over the road and started running intentionally, it just built and grew. And another place to find time is, so I mentioned you have to be off for 10 hours to get your drive time back. You have a 70-hour work week clock. Once the 70 runs low, you need to be shut down for 34. That's where I can do the long runs. Yeah. So it's like I had this 34-hour reset. I'd be in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, Indiana. Well, guess I'm going for a 10-mile run, and that's where I would fit those in. And along the way, along those 3 years, I ran, I probably don't need to, and now that I know so many endurance athletes, like there's no point in doing it, but I ran 5 marathons in those 3 years. normally if you want to be a marathoner and level up, you don't need to really do more than 2. One in the spring or early spring, winterish, and then one in the fall, basically for injury prevention and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean a marathon is not easy on the body. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely very taxing. The first one I ran was Austin in 2022. Took me 5.5 hours. It hurt like no other. I never ran more than 13 miles. It felt like I was stepping on a concrete. It was definitely super, super brutal. But I mean, it's, everything about it in so many ways, like with the fitness, it's tied in with my, mental transformation, professional transformation. Like you mentioned too, that self-currency, because me becoming more fit, because then when I would talk to people, when it comes to the podcast or going on podcasts, or when I went to the Mid-America Truck Show for the first time in 2023, and I'm talking to people who I normally wouldn't, business owners, freight brokers, when you talk to people and you tell them that you're a trucker who ran 5 marathons, they're not just looking at you like anybody else anymore. Like I became a currency, just like you said, in a lot of ways. And then coming off the road, this starts kind of act 3. I come off the road, another sort of identity thing, because I came off the road, I got backed into in 2023 at a truck stop in Iowa. My truck was down for a month, but I didn't skip a beat at this, and fitness is to credit. If this was 2018 and this happened to me, I would have been cursing, this is the end of the world, why me, poor me, all this
bitter,
stuff.
resentful, victim mentality. Yeah.
Wendy's.
Yep. Wendy's eating, I would have fallen right back into this vicious cycle. But I come off the road, I'm in Austin for a month. I immediately I'm like, okay, I've ran, at this point I've ran 4 marathons. I was like, I wanted to start leveling up. So my truck was still drivable. I take a load to Thunder Bay, Ontario. I take a combine back down to the Rio Grande Valley. I get home, send my truck to the shop where it gets fixed. It takes a month. This is when I got my ACE certification to become a fitness coach, because I was like, if I'm going to be the driver health guy, let's start getting a little bit of credentials. I start going to Orange Theory because my wife works there part-time. So the month I'm down, I'm training at Orange Theory. I get my ACE fitness coaching cert. I go back out on the road, but the Orange Theory is like, you should coach here. You're awesome and you have a crazy story. And so it's like, I have this $100,000 asset. I can't just quit my job. And so I go back out on the road. I work all summer. I really barely come home summer 2023, but I speak at an event in Kansas City. I was on a driver panel for CDL Life. Again, something I was invited to just because of who I am. I'm this guy who cares about driver fitness, and I'm talking about recruiting and retention and driver turnover and why health is important.
You become a currency.
Yeah, become this currency. And my friend Charles, who's another podcaster, content guy, works for CDL Life. He's like, you should come on this panel. So I did. I take a load outside of Kansas. I end up going to Kansas City, speaking at this event. He starts talking to me. He goes, hey, what's your plan? What are you doing? He owns a recruiting company. He's like, would love for you to come work for me. So at this point, I was hemorrhaging money. I'm trying to break even, get some bills paid. And I was like, well, dude, I still got this truck. He's like, and at this point, the trucking economy's going into a very bad recession. He's like, if you get out now, he's basically telling me, he's like, if you sell now, he's like, you can always go back company driver if you hate it. And so he's like, but if you sell now, you can break even, etc. And he was right. And so I had 2 options. Literally, it was either I sell the truck now, break even, or pray I can break even a year from now. And if I waited another year, if I kept driving in that truck for another year and then try to get, number one, I wouldn't have been able to grow. With the way the market was, again, to not get too into trucking economics, I would have been in the same, I would have been in the same place I was a year ago, if not worse, because of either more breakdowns or anything like that. So long story short, I now have 2 job offers. I can coach at Orange Theory, be a driver recruiter for my buddy Charles. And so I found a ticket out, transition off the road, another sort of identity crisis. Here I am. I built myself up as this very proud trucker. I'm Lombard Trucking. I'm back. My family's back. We're bringing the 80s back, so to speak. My family's company. And, what can I do? And, I was like, I've got to double down on my fitness. And that's when I started sinking my teeth into the Austin fitness community, especially the running community. I start running with endorphins. I become head coach at Orange Theory. I segue off of recruiting. I do 75 hard in 2024 because I was like, I need to become better. Like, if I really want to be a voice in the trucking industry, then that means I really need to. I can only rest on 5 marathons as a trucker for so long, which is crazy enough as it is. But I need to become so good that this industry can't ignore me. So I do 75 hard, prove I can do this really hard challenge. along the way, that's when I was like, I'm going to get in a triathlon. I'm going to do Ironman. And, I signed up for CapTex. And then, I signed up for the Waco 70.3. I had Ironman Florida in November. So I was like, I need to get to Ironman as quick as I can, because once you have that caliber, if you have the Ironman belt buckle, if you have that medal, and you're in a room, people will talk to you. And so that's where I really started to, so it's just like it transpired to where it started out as 2018. I need to lose weight and be healthy so I don't fall into an early demise and, see my life spiral downward, to then I need to be a leader and get better. And it just, the goalpost just kept moving and moving, and it was never planned. It was never by design, which kind of fits kind of my life in general. But I just knew it's just like, if I was going to be who I wanted to be at this point, like if I was going to be a voice or make it, so to speak, because again, coming off the road, I was head coach at Orange Theory. In my mind, identity crisis, like, where am I going? I still have this podcast. I'm trying to be a voice in trucking, but I'm not behind the wheel anymore. It's hard to be a voice when you're not behind the wheel. What can I do? I need to become elite, so to speak. And I'm not, elite in the Matt Johnson, Eric Hinman sense of the words. Those guys are really great, but it's me versus me. I need to be great. I need to be the best Lombard I don't need to be Matt or Eric, but I knew I needed to do some really, really hard things. So that way, when I'm in the room and I'm trying to talk to people like legislators at the state capitol, or CEOs of freight tech companies, or CEOs of motor carriers, and I'm telling them who I am, as opposed to what I've failed at, I had to sell my truck, this and that. So it's like, that's kind of how it's just transpired. I know it was a little confusing. It was a little all over the place, but it's
pretty on the money.
Fitness is everything apart. It's just fitness and freight are basically like kind of like my DNA at this point. And one complement the other, because the health of the trucking industry is really important. I know I don't want to take any more time, because I feel bad. I feel bad taking away from Paul, because this guy's incredible. Because I became really passionate about the health of the industry because of my grandfather, and then I learned the stats. And so I really wanted to be a voice. I want to, in all of 2024, I kept saying that when people would ask me what's next, I would say, we need to change the culture of health and fitness and trucking. Like, we need to change the culture. And I wanted to be that change. How can, but who's going to listen to just this failed owner operator? Who's going to listen to it? Well, maybe they'll listen to an Ironman. And along the way, as the goalposts keep moving and I set these other goals, people start paying attention more. And I link up with guys like Dr. Mark Maneri. He's a physical therapist, company Off Shift, who then got acquired by a nonprofit, Project 61. And so these people start entering my wheelhouse that are also in on this mission. And then come my current job, end of 2024 rolls around. Again, at this point, I've done Ironman Florida. I've gone from 0 to Ironman in 6 months. I'm in a group chat with my friend Reed, a guy I've known on Twitter. And I was thinking about, I still had a little bit of GI Bill left. I was thinking about going to A&M for like a master's in marketing or something, because I make content. So I was like, well, maybe I should learn more about marketing, because I'm trying to market myself, so to speak. And, in essence, in my mind, I was like, I want to be like the Matt Johnson of the trucking industry. Matt Johnson does a lot for vets. I want to be like the Matt Johnson for trucking. How do I do that? So I was like, I'll try to go back to school for marketing, since, most of it would be free. Reed finds out about this. He's like, hey, you're thinking about going back to school? He's like, what's your plan? He's like, are you looking for a job? And I was like, no, I'm a free agent. I'm a free agent. He's like, well, I was talking to Evan because you were mentioning going back to school, and then we want you on the team. And like, so when this job was offered to me, it was presented, by my boss. He was saying, like, we want you here because of who you are and everything you've done, because of your podcast and what you talk about, because of your passion about fitness, because of how you speak, because of how you present yourself, all this stuff. So from what started as dragging my knuckles into a CrossFit gym in 2018 has now become, you have a job because of working out.
Yeah.
Like because you drove a truck, worked out, and talked on camera to people. And again, fitness is the foundation of that. Because like, if I was just a driver with a podcast, not talking about fitness, and I was just bitching, moaning, complaining about, wow, brokers suck, and I was just like, became one of those like talking pieces in the industry, just like kind of like an opinion piece like, this is why brokers are suck, or this is why the government's bad, and FMCSA stinks, and ATA this, and I was just like shouting into the void.
And maybe you're like an 8.5 out of 10 out of it, right?
Yeah,
But it's like if you start pairing that and you're now a 9 out of 10 in some other domain, right? That confluence, it's like
bingo.
Yeah.
It's like the fitness being the foundation of who I am during this like content making advocacy while I'm driving carries a lot. People respected it. And that's why it's become like fitness will always be a main staple of my life. And if I lose running tomorrow, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to have to do something with my upper body. I'd have to figure it out. But it's just because overall, again, this country doesn't operate without truck drivers. Period. And when it comes to the health and fitness of the industry, it is so important because we're talking about saving lives. Not only is it better for business in general, but I showed that it was possible. It's possible for other drivers to do it. But why it's important in my eyes is because you can't just tell a driver, say, hey, look at what Mike Lombard did, go do that. It's all about the environment, right? And this is where kind of correct and community comes in the picture, and who you're around, the rooms you're in, your community. The change of health and fitness in the industry has to come from the top down. Like if you are in, just like if you have, my dad was an alcoholic, went to rehab, stopped drinking in 93. When you get out of rehab, whether it's drugs or alcohol, you don't go right back to that same environment. You don't go right back to...
Not if you're going to stay sober.
Yeah, not if you're going to stay sober. So it's like, you can't just toss... So truck drivers are already in a bad environment with truck stop food, XYZ. Like if you put... truck drivers are not in an environment that's like correct. That's full of positivity, uplifting, people with goals, getting after it, entrepreneurs. They're in a very hostile environment. It's a volatile market, everything. And so this environmental change needs to come from the leaders in the industry. It needs to come from the CEOs, the motor carriers, to the brokerages. Every link in the chain needs to be on board with this, because if the environment's there, if you toss a driver in the seat, you can't just be like, follow this guy, do what he did. No, you have to enable the environment.
I mean, it's the same phenomena of like you joining a CrossFit gym, right? And as a result of like, man, I like this environment, I'm actually going to make a better decision. I'm not going to drink the night before because I want to be there like the next day, right?
Exactly. You got to create that environment for them. And it's like, I can only do so much as one guy. So I've just got to try to get the industry on it with...
Do you mind if I comment on
currency?
it?
Yeah, man, come in, because I've been talking.
No. I've been thinking about what you were saying. So I think you had two F's, fitness and freight. And I think the core of you, that is a third F. And I would say fitness is a byproduct of this. And the freight industry of what you're trying to do for it is a byproduct. I would say it's failure. So it's the core of the authenticity around you. If in the sense that people can look at you and say, this leader, and by the way, you are the leader. It's not the CEOs of these companies who could go to their troops and point you out. You are leading this effort. They are not. And I think, so I don't know how the F's line up, if it's failure, freight, or fitness. Like, I think fitness is a byproduct of failure. It is, you were 280 pounds. You saw the death of your friend. You're in the freight industry, and you saw all this, that fitness, when incorporated into all this, could lead to these tremendous successes. And you did it. And see, most people will not do it. They will not. They're not leaders. It's just like how Alex walked 2,000 miles for his friend. No one's doing that for their friends. He did it. So you can look at it as an example. So I would say failure is what makes you real. Like, where I, as a driver, and by the way, you know that truck driving is stigmatized as if you're in a truck, you're a failure. Like, all else failed, dude. He's a truck driver.
Like, his life probably sucks, right?
And it's funny you say that, because my friend just wrote a book. That's such a cultural shift because of the Motor Carrier Act. Prior to 1980, trucking was this, it was an upper middle class job. Yeah. It was very respected. Like, we're talking about
it was
honor.
Like working in the auto plants. Like, it was real fucking, that's what made America.
Yeah.
It was stigmatized. And so a lot of these guys probably sit in a truck and look at themselves as failures. And you're saying, listen, guys, I've been in the seat. I failed from a personal aspect, from a business aspect, but I'll tell you what, this took me, my fitness and my freight background, and family, forgot 4 F's. So family, which was important to me, my lineage, and giving the trucking business like the name it deserves, because my family was like an innovator in the business, and I found fitness that can take us to another level. So I think if you incorporate the 4 F's, that in a sense you will become the leader in the industry. And this is where I say currency in the room, right? You're like, hey, I got to advocate among the CEOs and all this. Listen, the general dudes on the street hate that fucking guy up at the top. They're like, what's Bob? Bob's probably on his lake house in Alabama eating double pig steaks or whatever it is. And he's like, troops, I got this guy. But he's not the guy. So he can't be the leader. So I see in your future, that you yourself can be the leader by doing just what you're doing, bringing it to another level and having lineage, being in the business yourself behind the seat. That's also important. If you've never sat behind the seat, how can I trust you, dude? Like, you've never been behind the seat. Like,
yeah, that's huge.
It's huge. You've been on the road. You've suffered through the truck stops and the lack of everything. And then you took that and you incorporated fitness to make that whole thing better. And so now you want to bring that to the troops. Like, hey, I'm going to show you by example. And I think part of that goes back to your earlier failures. Dude, let me show you a picture. Oops, first slide, 280, dude. 280. All right? That's you. And then, boom, had to sell my fucking truck, guys. Like, but look at me now. And I'm telling you, if I can do this, you can do this. And you can become the David Goggins of the business. Like, you are that guy. Because from what I'm hearing, there's no other guys out there advocating for it. So.
Not to this, I tell people that a lot. There's other fit truckers out there. I'm friends with them on social media. There's guys who post their fitness content. Hey, you can do it. But like the project, like the nonprofit, like what we're doing with Project 61, I helped Mark Monero. We put together a curriculum that's now going into thousands of CDL schools, and we made video content for it. And I actually curated a partnership between a truck stop chain, Ambest, which is like a co-op for travel centers. I got this partnership going where we collabed on content with them that they're going to put on their social media pages. Hey, this is how you can navigate food you should get.
Just a domino effect.
So it's like, I don't like to let ego talk, but there really are not this involved. There's definitely other drivers who talk about health and fitness, but they're not as involved as in like to the point of where they are like, on the pulpit, like.
I would say another F. Well, they're not giving as many fucks.
And they're not giving as many fucks, and they're not. See, there's a certain ambition to you because your fitness journey hasn't stopped. At each stage, you were saying, I think I need to take it to a higher level, because in your insecurity, you're saying, I need to lop something even more crazy on top of what I've done. And so I would say again that there's not you out there. So that going back to the idea of currency, like there's nobody like you. Like I can tell with your personality, like you're good with crowds, you work people, you're good at speaking, and you incorporate that you can become the leader of this in the industry. And like I say, the CEOs, it's like a doctor when you go to a doctor and he's fat as shit and he's like, let me tell you what you can eat. You're like, dude, I mean, you're fucking 300 pounds, Like, he's like, you got to eat broccoli. You're like you don't eat fucking...
The coach who's out of shape.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, like, you are the living manifestation of that. Plus, you come from the industry, right? And you have a lineage, you have a name. And I think that goes back a lot to why you picked Lombard Trucking. You were proud of it. It was in your DNA. And so... You say it came naturally because you felt part of that. You felt part of your lineage. So in listening to you, I think it's about your journey. This is, you call it Act 3. So Act 4 is you become the leader. Okay, because you've set the stage for everything else. And I think the last stage is you believe that you are that guy. You're just not one of the guys. There's, like you said, there's a lot of guys, but there's not you.
It's also the
right?
Goggins approach of like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not me? Right?
So
Yeah.
in being uncommon, by being fired up by Goggins, you are the uncommon guy in your industry. Why not take it to the next level? Like you're putting in the work. No one else is doing. I know I hear some of these races, but like, you know, no one else is doing that, you know?
I have a question for the both of you.
Yeah.
I'm sure at times, being who you are, right, and standing out like Paul, your abilities with people and saying like I am the currency in the room regardless of the environment, and you know, you doing what you do. I'm sure that there have been people at times that have told you to stop being that, right, or like to limit yourself in some way. And I guess like what has been your journey with any like pushback you've received as far as just like being different from other people?
Do you want me to give a go at that?
Yeah, you can hit this one first. I
Yeah.
gotta ponder for a bit because I know
So
yeah, I've got something with it. Yeah,
I mean, I think I've never thought about it in the sense that have there been people that have said like you can't do this and you shouldn't be doing this, and I think that's 80-90% of people by nature. Like when you're putting yourself out there, I think by nature most people's reaction is that. But to your question, I would say I always innately had to come to the realization, having gone through the journey, that I was solely responsible for my own currency and that I could put it on other people. Like my dad fucking moved and, you know, Jesus, this didn't go well. And I could always find an outside source, but I ultimately knew if I really peeled the onion back, that I ultimately had to be responsible for my own outcome. So, I would say by nature, the universe is always telling you you shouldn't be doing this. It's fear-based. Don't do this. And that I go back to the idea that you have to be your biggest advocate despite the noise. So there was a lot of particular people
I'm
like
sure, yeah, like
that I could name, but I just find it was part of the noise that made me come to the realization that no one was coming to my rescue. When I was in a new school, like no one was, I had to work for it, right? And yes, it sounded like you had some people come into your life at key points, whether it was the guy that told you to sell the truck or the coach that said, hey, I see you, man, you should be doing this. Those are the people I remember more than the fucking guys that told me I couldn't do shit. You know, there's always been certain people I'll remember who have looked at me and said, dude, can I help you with something? And that's why I want to use that energy more than I will never tell someone not to do something. I will tell them to be thoughtful or to do more research if they're pitching me.
Yeah.
But it's never like, don't do it, because who am I, right?
Yeah.
But if I can help, that's what I want to do. So my energy comes from like when you say, hey, there was a guy that told me sell your truck now. You're going to get out of this, and you're like, thank God that dude came into my life.
Oh yeah, it was like the little piece of validation because a lot of people will be like, especially when you pay attention to like, you know, Hormozy types and everything, like, you know, the not quitting, like, oh, when you want to quit, that's when you're on the verge of like a success. But again, like sometimes in business, and at least what I've learned was that me selling the truck wasn't, you know, yeah, it's a quote unquote failure, you know, because I'm not, you know, I don't own that truck anymore, but it was a pivot. Like it was me pivoting in my own journey into what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I'm not driving the truck. I'm not, you know, earning an income or revenue that way. But when you think of yourself as the business in general, as the currency, is like, you know, you read the writing on the wall. And again, and I was right the whole time, when you look at the market and everything going on. And what's great, what I love what you said is, even after I sold the truck, I've had other people ask me, should I buy? Should I become an owner operator? I've never said no, don't. But I would always ask them, hey, what do you want? Do you want to own a business? Like, do you know, want to start building relationships with people? Like, because this is something you're going to have to do. You're going to have to be friends with brokers. You're going to have to, like, a lot of people get into driving for the isolation, like because you're kind of a nomad, you're last American cowboy, etc. So it's like, but when you own the truck, you're a business owner. You got to be sales now. You got to talk to people. You want shippers. Is that what you want to do, or do you just want to make a little bit more money? And so that would be conversational. But if they're like, no, I really want to own a business, I think it'd be great to grow. I'd be like, dude, let's go. I got a girl at Great West Insurance. She'll get you locked in on a freaking policy. Got XYZ. You can lease a trailer. This guy, I was like, I can connect those gaps. But yeah, I've never wanted to ever become the no, don't do it person.
I think as part of Act 4, and you're already going there already through your advocacy in Act 3 is part of what I find. Again, it's a trope. More fulfilling than like actual success is the success of the people you helped along the way, and that you have the power to do that through what you've already done for yourself. And that if you can spread that sort of energy and sort of knowledge, and it'll be more fulfilling to you in your legacy. I mean, like, because like they say at your funeral, no one's going to be like, hey, Michael made $1 billion. They'll be like, that motherfucker told me, like, at this point in my career, like, he helped me.
He cared. Like, he cared. Right?
He cared. And everyone's going to be like, he cared. And so all that other stuff is peripheral. That's ego-driven stuff, because we all want it, by the way. That's another thing you have to go through and learn. You all want it. We all want it. We can all say, no, I don't want that. You do.
Yeah.
You want to at least feel it, right? You want to feel that. So, but I would say, yes, help as many people along the way during your journey. And I think what you do already is doing that just by osmosis, because that's the other thing I think about on it is like, it's not just through direct conversations. It's like, yeah, I saw Mitch just lost 40 fucking pounds. Like,
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I've been watching him.
Yeah. So it's like, what am I doing?
Coming up on 11 months sober.
Yeah. And it's through work. It's because, like, do you have kids?
No, not yet.
Yeah. And for good and bad, for my kids, for good and bad, is like they do look at action versus words.
Well, I always think too, like,
yeah,
I had Casey Terrell come on a bit earlier, and
another amazing human
awesome
being.
person.
Yeah.
Awesome person. And I didn't know Casey super well, like, prior to having her on. I had had a few interactions with her and stuff, but I'd kind of followed her stuff and like seen her transformation, right? And she would have had no idea like the impact that had on me, as like I said, I'm almost 11 months sober, but like a year ago, I was pretty much at rock bottom, right? Like, I went back to rehab. I hadn't been, to drug and alcohol treatment in 8 years. I'd kind of like gotten my life together and, got my degree and went out to grad school. And here I was just a complete fucking rock bottom. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of treatment, so it was like July of last year, I was like, I was down in Texas temporarily. I kind of liked it down there. I had like some friends and kind of some positive people around me. And I got my brother. But I was like, I'm going to have to make some changes, right? How I was living was not okay. And as I thought about that, like the idea of just like transformation and, really remodeling my entire life in a year, like who came to mind was Casey Terrell. And like that had a huge impact on me. I'm like, well, if she could do that like in a year, like what the hell can I do? And the point I'm getting at though is like, when you're in a community, even if you're not close with different people, like the impact that you have on people that you would have no idea about, can be quite like profound and significant.
Even if you never know about it, even if it silently has changed someone's life, there's a huge fulfillment in knowing that, like, as part of your journey. I see like your advocacy in what you do as an example for people, right? That they can look at and say, just like he looked at.
I mean, you're an example to me. I'm a research scientist, right? I'm covering some different territory on my podcast. I don't have the background in content creation, neither did you, right? But I'm both a research scientist and I don't know, but I'm like big on advocating for mental health and sobriety and like trying to kind of do a bunch of different things at once. And I'm like, well, Mike sure as hell finds the time. I can see it. Like, you ran 18 miles this morning. I'm like, I'm like, there are people out there that do this, why not me? And I mean, our particular like flavors of that are, will look quite different, but yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see in real life people right around you having these successes and actually putting in the work. It's profound. So I think what you're doing is like pretty special.
No, I appreciate it.
I think you can be that guy though.
Yeah, and I mean,
you can be uncommon.
A lot of what gives me that belief is like the people I correct. Yeah, these people who are doing so many different things. Even and then a guy like Matt Johnson, I see him, another fellow veteran. That's what in what he's built for himself, and it's like, wait, I know this guy. I have his phone number. I've been to his house. Like I'm in the same room. If I'm in the same room as this guy, what is really stopping me but me? And back to the pushback thing. That's definitely something I've had to fight because growing up, my brother's 5 years older than me. So older brother. And him and I aren't like we're friendly and stuff, but like he joined the Navy in 2003. I was in middle school. And then he was in the Navy for 10 years. I joined the Marines in 2008. So basically, like he wasn't in my life from when I was from basically 13 to when I was 23 when he got out of the Navy. So like that's most of your your adolescent life. Through entire high school, through my time in the Marines.
That is your main like formation of identity period.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like he wasn't really there for that, but what he was there for the first 13 years of my life where. He was the older brother that was very, don't do this, don't do that, you can't do this, etc. And I told the story on Kate and Alex's podcast once where I remember I was like in my backyard, like swinging a baseball bat. I was like, I forget how old I was. I was under 10 at the time or something. I played like Little League baseball. And I remember like getting laughed at, by my brother and like friends in the pool because I had said like as a little kid, like, I'm a Mets guy. I love Mike Piazza and all this stuff. And I always said like, it would be great to be a pro baseball player. I want to be a pro baseball player. And, but he was the older brother. So you'll never be a pro baseball player sort of things. And so at a young age when you're told like, you can't do something like be a pro baseball player. And it's like, to be fair, even if I took baseball as seriously as I could have, I definitely don't think I would have made it. Major League Baseball is really hard to get into, but that's another conversation. But to be told like, as like a 7-year-old or whatever, like you're never going to be something.
Stop aiming for that.
Yeah,
quit that shit. Right?
Yeah, stop aiming for it. Like it sticks in your brain towards other things, and then even move into Texas. Like when we told our family we were moving to Texas, he even said he's like, you're going to get into this unhealthy job. Yeah, like you're gonna get fat again. The jobs for Drea aren't gonna be as good as Texas as New York City. She's not gonna do it. Your family's here. Basically trying to talk us out. He tried to talk us out of moving to Texas. And I've had other people say, you shouldn't do things or whatever. And especially as I've made content, I've dealt with negativity from either. Other drivers who are like, you're an idiot, or you're XYZ, and some of those things. And even recently, obviously I've started, talking a little bit more about, stuff, Serbian stuff, and people are like, why are you talking about this? And it's like, well, because I can, and it's
something I care about.
And at this point, I've learned this mentality. It's just like, if you're gonna ask me why I'm doing something or why I shouldn't do something, now I view it. It's just like, okay, if somebody's not in my life, but I had to learn this, and fitness is to credit to that. Whereas like, yeah, if they're at this point now, people's words to me used to carry a lot of weight, and I would feel guilt, and I definitely have been a people pleaser in the past and feel guilty about asking about things. But now it's just like, if you're going to ask me why I'm doing something or tell me why I can't do something, if this person's not helping me, then what? No fraction of my time should be worth it, because my entire philosophy, and I talk about a lot, is help other people win no matter what. Like that is my entire philosophy on it. I kind of like, not to get too dirty, but like I get a thrill, a rush. Like I kind of get off on being the guy who knows a guy. Like I'm not the guy, I'm not the plumber, I'm not the mechanic. Like, but I know a guy. Like just like I mentioned the UCI insurance lady. Like I've gotten so many guys I know in touch with Jessica to help them out with insurance. I've gotten and because I've been talking about Serbia so much, again, I know the reason why I'm like, I've been friends with Serbs for years because there's a lot of Serbs in trucking. So like I've connected, motor carriers, guys who, Serbs who own motor carriers. I've connected them with brokers I know. I've connected with brokers with carrier. Hey man, do you know any flatbed companies? I must have dialed in so many emails to do that putting carriers in touch with brokers because it doesn't matter. Like if somebody's asked me for help, it's like hell yeah, because I know if that was me, if I'm like, hey man, if I was a broker and I'm like, of course you need to sell freight, it's part of your job. Like my entire philosophy is help people win no matter what. So somebody else is like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you talking about this? Or who do you think you are? If I get pushback now, or if anybody tried to tell me anything, it's just like, I can't even fathom taking time out of my
why would I place value on
what you're I can't
saying?
Put value in it because it's not advancing me. It's not advancing me or anybody else.
Like I'm pretty clear on who I am and like what I'm about, right?
And again, I've been held back. Again, the identity crisis stuff held me back for so many years. Now the only regrets I have, like I always say, like, because I've said in other podcasts before, like, getting my CDL opened more doors than going to college and everything. And I think like, man, imagine if I started driving when I was 22 instead of waiting so long. Like if I got my CDL like right when I got out of the Marines, and I think if I could do things over again too, like getting out of the Marines, knowing how passionate I am about fitness now, it's like I could have used the GI Bill to become a PT or get into nursing or something like that. Because I definitely, I work part-time as a fitness coach, and I've coached drivers for free. I've set them up with plans and they've done their macros and everything. It's like I could have done this. So there's definitely a lot of like coulda, so to speak. But any sort of pushback now, I've had to deal with it, and I dealt with it from 2012 to essentially, the day we drew the line in the sand saying we're going to Austin, I'm getting my CDL. Until then, people's words and what they thought I could and could not do definitely held a lot of weight. And I definitely had no confidence in my ability to do those things, because I would have thought they were either too big of a risk or what if I fail? Because that's because if I fail, like, am I going to end up broke, end up back with my parents? But anybody who's sharing words with you that has nothing to do with helping you or getting you moving forward, it's gonna, it holds everybody back. Because when you're holding yourself back from doing it, again, there's those interactions you talk about, those conversations you have with people that can change and do things, set things up. I think, because so when you don't make a decision, or if somebody tells you, hey, you shouldn't do this, and you don't do it, you just put out in the universe, you just ended a possibility for other people now. Now that I look at it, I'm just thinking about this out loud since we're having this conversation. Is like when you don't take risk, or if somebody says, no, you shouldn't do this, it's like, unless somebody's telling you not to do drugs, or like, hey, you probably shouldn't do this, or you probably shouldn't hang out with this guy who...
It's also presumptive, right? It's like, what the fuck? Who are you to tell me what I can and can't do, right?
Yeah, it's like, unless somebody's telling you something like, don't jump off a building, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't jump off a building. Like there's very straw man, easy, like, don't do things. Like, yeah, don't go 150 miles an hour on I-35 at 5 p.m, because you'll probably crash. Like, yeah, those things listen to. But anything else, like life-related, career, fitness, competitions, this, the other thing. I've had people even say, this one guy, he's like, you should really ease up on all the marathons because of your knees. And I'm like, I was like, is that really where we're gonna go? He's like, yeah, I had to do this.
Was he wearing knee braces?
Yeah.
It's like, it's you said it at the beginning. A lot of stuff you hear is based on insecurities from the other people. It's the other person reflecting their
it's the mirror rule, right?
Yeah, it's the mirror rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask, so a question to both of you. Do you like often have to remind yourself, or do you have an internal view of like, I am different than other people, if that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely that happens sometimes, especially like going, because it's kind of crazy now, and sometimes like
I am not like you type of thing.
Yeah, like and it's hard to come to terms with, because in my own mind and head, like, again, I believe truthfully, like, anybody can go to Ironman. Really, like just knowing who I am, like, yeah, did I grow up a swimmer and did I have a swimming? Yeah, sure, but it's like from the people I've met at Ironman, but I'm not a cyclist. That's another thing, and I also was never a runner. Like, I didn't start intentionally running until 2020. But I just the fact that I do it, I know anybody can do it if you just train for it. If you just do the work, anybody can. From the people I've met, who've done Ironman, from the injuries they've had, cancer survivors, there's a lot of sober people in the Ironman community. People who've, you look at guys like, even guys like Mitch Ammons here in Austin, and his story and his testimony and what he's done with running. So I know anybody can do it. And that's how I feel about everybody around. But then sometimes when I get, like, either if I'm at a conference or anytime I go back home to Connecticut, again, like, I always say we live in this kind of bubble in Austin of, especially this fitness community. But going back to Connecticut, none of my friends do what I do. None of them are doing Ironman. I think one girl I went to college with just ran the Boston Marathon. Out of how many, thousands of people I went to school
I know
with.
these types of things just feel normal, like in the bubble here in Austin.
Everywhere you look,
you kind of forget how unusual it is.
Two people going to Leadville, how many people at Correct are winning High Rocks. They're on podiums. Somebody's going to Ironman. Somebody's doing a 100-mile ultra, last man standing. Yeah, it's like everywhere you turn, somebody's doing something absolutely astronomical. And then, but yeah, when I go home, it's like, and when I try to have conversations like this, when I'm home, where you're just talking about, like going home, and then even sometimes at some of the truck shows or trucking related events, deep conversation like this, like getting vulnerable, and then talking about like everything that we've been talking about. You can tell it's like it's not that I'm better than them when they're like, when I don't feel like, but there's something inside me where it's just like I almost don't feel comfortable talking how I normally talk when I'm here in Austin, because sometimes, and I actually caught myself slipping. I went to and this just happened. We did a philanthropy event for my wife's job where we were like serving food at a low-income apartment building, and one of the girls was there. Her husband is like an endurance guy. And she was talking about how she went for a run. She was like, yeah, it was really hard to run this morning because of where my hotel was. And I was like, oh, your hotel. I was like, oh, you should have just shot down to the trail and go. She's like, I was like, you should have just shot down to the trail. You could have done whatever else. And then I just said, oh, but you only did 3 miles because like the distance from her hotel to the trail would have been like, 2 or more, whatever. It was a couple miles away. I was like, oh, you only did 3 by the time you got to the trail. Like that would have been your run. And the way I said it came off of was, oh, it was only 3 miles. Like it was only 3 miles. Yeah. Like I said it, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was like, because I don't mean that, because really, because when it comes to drivers I talk to, especially about health, I'm like, dude, all you need to do right now is just switch to diet and go for a 20-minute walk. Do that for 2 weeks, and then we'll talk. And I'm very encouraging, and doing group fitness coaching has like really helped me deal with anybody with their limitations or where they're starting out at. And but just in conversation, I was like, oh, it's only 3 miles. I've done that. So there's definitely like rooms I've been in where I kind of feel uncomfortable, where it's like I have kind of been like, you know what, maybe I need to talk less, smile more in these rooms, because I am a little bit different. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's just like, hey, if they're interested, they'll ask me.
I also think like, in terms of like any negative pushback, I mean, I'm just getting going, right? But something I think about a lot is like, one, that's a reflection of them, but like, I'm not trying to run the same race as you, right? Like my aim is different probably, right? Than, what you either think my aim is or what you want for yourself. And like, that's okay. I'm not running the same race.
I think you have to remind yourself, if I get the gist of your question, you were like, do you feel different from other people or
like, do you internally, as you've had, an unusual life in terms of both, I think, career-wise and also proximity to very affluent people, I'll say. As you've had that life, have you had to like really remind yourself or keep an internal view of like, not that you're better than other people, but that you are different than other people?
Okay, so that's a good question. I'll go back to currency of self. I would say I have to remind myself who I am. And the reason I say that is when I grew up, we were always moving. So I had no sense of self. And then I was alone a lot. So I would read vociferously. And I would read, whether it was nonfiction, fiction, magazines, about the lives of other people. And I would say, God, if I could only be that guy, whoever it was. and I have to remind myself, and I still do this today, is particularly in the age of social media. Like, you can get captured by someone's whatever and say, God, I wonder. But I've taken my own course, and I have to remind myself again of my own currency, of my own life choices, and be okay with that, to stand fast in my own truth. Does that make sense? Because it's a constant reminder to me. I know I'm different, 100%. Like when I walk into rooms with guys, like I went to my fraternity reunion. These are guys that had linear career tracks, most of them on Wall Street, highly successful dudes. And here I am, man, like the guy that's just throwing mud on the wall. And I know they're looking at me like, fuck. My nickname was Chief in college. They're like, fuck, Chief, are you on a vision quest, dude? Like, it's so hard to put me in a bucket. And a lot of times that's made me feel uncomfortable. Like, God damn. But it's also my power, because I have found I can walk into rooms and people want to know more about me than the guy that did the linear track up the ladder at Wall Street. Does that make sense? Because they themselves aren't grounded in truth, right? So to your question, I think it's a constant battle of currency and self, that never try to compare myself to someone else's track, except, like you said, run your own race. But I have to remind myself of that daily, because it's a constant, no matter what my achievements have been, proximity, success directly, what I've done, I've always, because of my past, which I haven't escaped, have looked somewhere sometimes and said, God damn, maybe if I had only done that, or if I had done that earlier, or if I had made this choice, but I didn't.
Like the craving as like a social creature. That's what we are, right? We like are wired to want to be a part of the tribe in general. So there's always like that pull, right? And I think with that, almost like a craving or looking like the grass is greener, of like, man, that if only I fit in that box.
Yeah, and it's not always cracked up to what it is, because you can romanticize it. I like, one of my favorite magazines was Vanity Fair, right? It's all about this pizzazz and these lives, gilded lives that are actually shithole lives, right? And so, but you say, damn, I bet you I wouldn't be a shithole if I went there. And then you kind of get there and you're like, this isn't what it was cracked up to be.
Yeah.
But I romanticized about it. And I've, again, as I've gotten older, I've tried to say, like, just be comfortable being you, run your own race. And if you do that well and you help the people around you, that's good enough. And with social media, it's still kind of tough, because I don't care. Something can pop on your feed, even if it's correct. And you're like, God damn it, fuck. But it's just, so that's where I'm at with that. Am I different? 100%. I have not followed one track at all. Yeah. So it's hard to pin me, and people want to pin you. People get uncomfortable when they can't pin you down.
Oh, man, speaking of F1, because you mentioned going to F1.
Yeah.
It was, because that's another thing. Like, when I tell my story to new people that I meet, the first thing they'll always ask, they'll be like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Like, because when I tell them, I talk about Marines, I talk about college, I say enterprise, warehouse, trucking, content, Ironman. Like, and again, Ironman in general, some people train very long to get to Ironman. So when they hear all this stuff, they're like, they're like wondering, they're like, how old actually are you?
Yeah.
in that aspect. But at F1, speaking of people trying to pin you, we were, and again, talk about a room I wasn't supposed to be in. I'm friends with this guy, Nick. Him and I are doing Texas Water Safari in June, which is a canoe race from San Marcos to the Gulf. That's another story, because I did it last year. But otherwise, he runs the Explore ATX Instagram page. And so you want to talk about a guy who's just like the ultimate manifester, like getting in places. He's grown that page. It's done really well. But he knows the people who own the car condos near F1, the people, not the owners of the condos, but the people who opened the car condos. And he was, going over there and filming content. We're walking around. He's just filming some content for, I forget the guy's name who opened up the car condos. But we ended up going to this party, in one of the condos, because it was F1 weekend. This was last year. And, we're just talking to people, and he's filming some stuff. We're at this guy's birthday party. He's some tech guy. He owns the condo for his cars. And I'm having a conversation with this one guy. Now, mind you, these people have been raging for quite a bit.
Sure.
But I'm talking to this one guy, and his wife was standing next to him, and I was wearing my. It's funny because I was wearing my company's shirt, Truck Parking Club shirt.
Okay.
They're like, "What is that?" And I was explaining to them, and then I was explaining my life story, and the woman was just like, "I can't figure you out." She was like, she wanted to try to put me in and we don't need to go there. She was trying to put me into a political box. She's like, "I don't get it." She's like, "You have this hair, the mullet, you work in trucking, but you are an Iron Man, you live in Austin." She's like, she just kept saying, she goes, "I can't figure you out."
I've gotten this so many times.
She's like,
almost like, why are you at this party? Like sometimes like F1, it's like they're trying to put you in a money box. Should we be partnering with these people? You know what I'm saying? Like she's trying to size you up real quick. Women are really good at that.
Yeah.
It does. And
if they're like the significant other, I found a lot of times with like mogul guys, they give you to their wives first because the wife is like, she's like, "I fucking landed you.
Yeah,
so I can sift out anyone who else is trying to, you know?" So a lot of time the husband's like, "Go talk to Mitch." And if she's like, they're like, "Dude, come over." If the wife's like, "I don't care what you say, you're done."
Yeah, and that's the thing. The only reason I was there, I was just there for the vibes. And then she's like, "I can't figure out." She's like, "So what are you doing here?" I was like, "That's Nick." I was like, he films videos and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm his buddy." I was helping him out making content. And they're like, "Blah blah blah." What do you? And she just kept saying that. She's like, I can't figure you out." Like what? It was like she had
what are you?
She shorted out. She was like, "I can't figure it out." And even then, and I'm in a room with literally like millionaires, people who make, infinitely times more money than I have, and they're just like, and they're impressed with who I am. "I can't figure you out. I can't do it." And I don't think there's any, like, no amount of money will replace like how I felt in that car condo. Like I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
No, you're doing all right being you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing.
I've had this like where I've been battling addiction for 12 years, and I've had ups and downs, and it's like I've been to rehab 4 times, right? I also was like a PhD student at Brown University,
Sure.
and like
the two don't go together.
it's and I have
elite.
I have a podcast currently, right? But I dropped out of my PhD program. Like you don't see a lot of scientists like go and be very public facing as what I've been doing. I'm not saying I'm good at it, right? I'm just like learning what I'm doing, but I've had the courage at least to go out and try it. And it's like, yeah, I've gotten that. Like, dude, like what the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to ask. I guess I'm just like learning.
But I think in that you always like, it sounds like it's like you have, I go back to that currency thing. You always have to be vested in yourself, or that can get to you when people are like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And, if you have these outside sort of like accepting of noise, it can mess with you. And, I think that's why there's a lot of courage just continuing to do what you're doing, because most people don't, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Yeah, like next week I'm going to interview someone who tries to study schizophrenia in a dish, right? But I'm also like sitting down and having this conversation. It's like, yeah, I also was told like that I should pick a lane. I'm like, well, that's not me. Like I don't, I'm curious about a lot of things. So.
That's one thing I've been told too, especially with content. They're like, you need to pick a niche, like pick a lane. Like, is it trucking? Is it fitness? Is it this? And it's like, no, I'm like, it's everything. I was like, no, I'm like
I like history, right?
Yeah, like, I like it. Like this is who I am. This is my personality. Like you said, it's kind of related. The be the currency thing is, and I can't wait to use that because it's along the line with like I've been saying it. I think that Higher Up Wellness said something similar, but I definitely just thought like I'm the niche. Like that's the thing. Like Lombard is the niche. I'm not trying to be somebody else or be anything. Like I'm going to talk about Napoleon, but I'm also going to talk to you about why driver wages need to go up. Also, truck parking is a major nationwide issue. Also, you should be fit. Also, this is what I did in the month of
kind
April.
of like philosophy of helping people.
Yeah, and, this is why I think this everything.
I am all these things.
Well,
right?
That's why I think a person that exemplifies that to me is Theo Vaughn. I don't know if you know Theo. But it's like when I first saw Theo, he was in no lane. But the one thing he did through his podcast was take calls from regular people and be like, dude, I feel for you. He would cry. It was real. It was authentic. I remember seeing him laughing my ass off in one sense, but then he would be crying with someone in another sense. And then he gets offered, he just made that movie Busboys, but then he was turned down a movie with Chris Pratt because he's like, it's not my thing. And people are like, oh, you fucked up. Now he's bigger than all of those guys. Like, Chris Pratt can show up and they'd be like, oh, it's Chris Pratt. Theo shows up, it's mayhem. It's mayhem. And it's because I think he is who he is, and the common guy is like, fuck yeah. And the guy who's above can't believe all the masses are like, fuck yeah. So they're like, I gotta know Theo. But if Theo sold out and went into the movie, he's just another dude. He's just another dude. He's not Theo. Right. Yeah. So he's a guy that kind of exemplifies like, be you, man. Because people will figure that out like real quick. Like he's showboating versus like, oh, he's doing it.
Yeah, and I think like this mentality or this like, kind of internal psyche question I'm asking it, and I don't know, it's something I think I'm coming to terms with, but it's not like I think I'm better than other people, but it's just understanding like, perhaps I'm just like different, and that's all right. And that I just like, need to fill those shoes. So
yeah, it's awesome that because I can tell you, I'm never going to get a PhD in anything.
I didn't get a PhD. I just took my master's. But
the thing is, you went to a PhD program, correct?
Yeah, I was a college dropout at one point, right?
I'm not going to any PhD programs. So I think just the fact that you went to a PhD program and you're doing everything else you're doing with your job, with making content, is awesome. Like that, it's freaking phenomenal that you're doing that, because I don't know any other, number one, anybody, I don't even know if I know any other PhD dropouts.
I also was an undergrad dropout for a while. So,
period.
Yeah.
So it's like already you've written some comebacks, but yeah, you're right. I think it's something you're right. You've kind of got to learn, like, I don't think you get used to being different, but how I've started to navigate doing the podcast has really helped in a lot of ways, because what I love to do too, I do love to listen, but from when I doing my own podcast, I've had a lot of drivers on, and I've had a lot of founders of like companies. I've had some FreightWaves reporters on, and what I always start off with is getting their story. And a lot of drivers, especially, I have on like, my story, nobody, they think their story is, they're nothing special, anything like that. But then all of a sudden you hear their story and, oh, this person was working in sports journalism before now they're an owner operator, at least signed a Landstar. And I'm like, do you not realize how actually incredible that is? And when you're able to pull that out of them, when you pull their story out and then tell their story back to them like it's a movie, and then seeing how they feel after when they hear it, and like hearing their gratitude in that, it like nothing. There's been nothing more rewarding, and that's what's definitely, and like doing the podcast, and the more and more I talk to people, is definitely, it's just like, yeah, I'm in rooms where where I know I'm different. And again, not better, but just a little bit different. And my focus is, because by different, it's the lifestyle. That's really the only thing that's different, if you think about it. Is like,
it's not any one particular thing. It's the combination of things.
Yeah.
Right?
So the combination, like, so when I go back to Connecticut, and there's what my other friends are doing, and even parts of my family, it's like our lifestyles are just different, and it's either way. But it's like, but that doesn't it doesn't really matter. And also realize that they're different, and their story is still pretty awesome too. So just realizing like all people are awesome, regardless of whether they're doing Ironman or they're just trying to be, or they are following a linear career path. It's how can we relate to those people and help them make their lives better, and also can they help us?
Yeah, I'm not perfect at this. I try to walk around the world though, like with the mindset that everyone's got an interesting story to tell. Some people, you just really got to work to get it out of them. And most don't even realize it, that they have an interesting story, right? And
but it sounds like, Mitch, that like in some level, like you asked this a question to get an answer, like that you're struggling being different. It sounds like you're not 100% sure about your difference. I'm saying it's all right, dude. It's okay.
Hell yeah.
It's okay.
Well, I'm definitely, like, I'm sure
it's okay
that I'm different, but it's just,
no, it's okay.
letting myself, embrace that. So
that's where it goes. It's like, embrace it now.
Yeah.
Like, if I talk to myself, like, past self, it's like, embrace it early.
Should have just owned it.
Always
Yeah.
own it early, because it will walk with you for the rest of your life until you embrace it. So if you're struggling with it now, some people need an ayahuasca trip. It just sounds like, no, honestly, I just think you just need to say, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're all right.
That's
You're all
been,
right, dude.
Yeah. And that's been part of
Yeah.
like why I'm doing this. I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to like build a box for myself where I just like get to be different. Right. And
Yeah.
fucking let it happen. And
By the way, that term in and of itself is not proper, because when you say different, it means you feel outside of the norm. Okay. So it's actually comparative. You're actually comparing yourself when you ask that question, like, am I okay being different? Different from what?
yeah.
Different because there's a comparative set out there. That's why I'm saying that set is not actually a real set.
Yeah.
That's a construct that's been created through whatever form, whether it's social media, whether it was your parents, the church, anyone. You got to do this. It creates this difference because you have these things build up over time. If you don't do this, I'm different.
Yeah.
It's all fake, dude. That's why I'm saying, like, it's a comparative set that drop it. Own it now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not fucking different. I'm
just-
actually just me comparing myself against a false set of constructs that I grew up with.
Yeah.
That makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Because you should have been this. You should have gone to church. You should get married. You should have kids. And then when you're not, you're like, oh, fuck, I'm different.
Well,
It's fake. It's all fake.
I also like when I say like I don't even know when I knew it. It always was just very clear to me. I'm like, I don't think I'm meant for like a linear career path. Like that is not appealing to me. And like that type of thing, right?
But
Yeah.
the reason you're uncomfortable is because, listen, my dad was 30 years corporate. You know, he's like, dude, you got to lock in with an organization and you grow with it and it grows with you. I mean, look at GE, it blew up. Look at Lehman, blew up. Like American Airlines at one point blew up. That's like
Spirit Airlines.
Yeah, you could have a
Just went
career
down.
track that we talked about earlier that you think is certain that just would blow you out in your life. Imagine being with Bear Stearns for 30 years and then
Yeah.
having zero retirement dollars.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So I think
Epstein got out early. Huh?
Yeah,
what
so
are those
you're
Enron guys doing? Yeah.
yeah, Enron's like, so it's to me, you're not different, dude.
Just me.
You're me. You're
Yeah.
you. And so all this other stuff has been constructed around you. It's all fake. It is kind of like the Matrix. You got to kind of let that go.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I would say to my earlier self. Like, it's all fake, dude.
It's all tied. You know, my wife and I have been really getting into. You know, obviously we're catechumen in the Orthodox Church. We're really excited and fully believe in that. But obviously we learn from everybody, and we read Joe Dispenza and we watch some stuff on the Gaia Network and have learned about ego. And like when we think ego, we think bad, like egotistical. But really, everybody has an ego. And
Yeah, there's a healthy amount of ego to have,
and,
right?
And just like what you were saying, like how everything's fake. Your ego, everything about your ego is a defense mechanism. So like how. If I was to, how sometimes if you're in a conversation with somebody and like how sometimes like how a joke can be offensive to one person but not another.
Yeah.
It has to do with their ego. It's because of a learned experience in their mind. But really, the joke in general isn't like
it's not inherently good or bad, right?
Yeah, it's not inherently good or bad. I'm not talking about anything that's like talking really bad about somebody, but just like a joke. Or sometimes how somebody said like. If how somebody says something, kind of like how, say you're from New York City and somebody wants to say what's up, they say, hey, fuck off.
Yeah.
Or somebody from Boston.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But if you go to somebody in Alabama or Florida, you're like, hey, what's up, you piece of shit? Like, they'd be like, like that sort of thing. And all that is like, ego is a defense mechanism from your learned experiences from a very young age, from when you're a toddler, baby, growing up. And in the kind of like, and then realizing it's all fake, where, wait a minute, oh, this somebody said this to me, it made me feel bad. Why am I feeling bad?
Challenge my own feeling there.
It's
right?
like you should kind of challenge some of your own feelings in a way where even, and Slavic people talk about this a lot too, because they had a different learned experience, especially people from Russia and other parts of Eastern Europe. They grew up under communism. They almost have this like very, I don't want to say dark humor, but this sense of like, like their sort of spirit where like sometimes you can't tell, like they're very direct. Like Slavic people are very direct in how they speak to you because they don't want to waste time. Like they think that if they're not speaking to you directly, if they're dancing around it or they're like XYZ, but blah blah blah, like they're gonna say something to you very direct, and in their mind, their ego, they're telling you that they're doing that out of love. Like it sounds a little stern, a little bit like a little bit. Might seem a little bit harsh, but it's coming from a place of love, and that's because of their ego, because of learned experience from how they grew up. And it's the same thing with everybody. So when people think of ego, but just realizing that, like, so if a Slavic person is being very direct with you, telling you something, and you're taking it as like, oh my God, does this person hate me? It's like, no, they don't hate you, realizing it's all kind of fake. Like your ego, you kind of have to deconstruct, like, oh, wait a minute, just because this happened to me 15 years ago doesn't mean it's true now. It doesn't mean that that's the reality now. I don't have to create that. So it has to do with creating the reality that's you. Like you just going back to you're the currency, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is like, I think just out of human nature, because if left to our own devices, actually we're not like very good people. Like we do crazy stuff. And so I think a lot of these constructs have been built because it creates order. Get a job, get married, have a kid, do this, do this. It creates order. And when you're not that way, it seems chaotic to people. Like the girl that busted her head in the F1 party. She's like, wait a minute. Like when you're not doing things like the way the people around you expect, it's a lot of people view that as chaos. It's like messing with the order that they themselves have slotted themselves into. So when they look at you, oh my God, you're chaotic. Get your shit together. Like, get it together, because it's a way of almost of conformity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I believe that. I'm not a huge believer in human nature being great, because I think there's a reason for it. It keeps us as a society in some level, but I think only growth and stuff, only leadership, uniqueness, uncommonness comes from like being out of the order.
Too much ordinary, like you don't get progress if everyone fits in the box.
Correct.
Right.
And that's why, excuse me, it's like, like with you, like being uncommon in your space is what's going to create the new order, right? Everyone's vested in the old order, right? It's got to be that. Oh, you're a driver. You should be out of shape.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Come on, Bob. You should go to Buc-ee's. Like, it. When you talk outside of that, people are like, "What up?" But over time, it vests as a new order, a better order. You know, so sometimes being different is important. And that's where I say,
it carries risk, but that's also
a lot of risks, especially individualized risks when you feel you're different.
Yeah.
And when humans feel different, they don't feel good, right? It's the old clan
until
mentality.
People embrace the fact that they're different.
Right, but you have to survive that. That time alone. Yeah. That gets very lonely. Whether you're starting a business, a new trend, a new thought. We're wrapping a lot of these thoughts together where the outside noise starts to come. No. And if you outlast that, 3 years later, it's the new order. And people are like, fuck, dude.
You did it.
You did it.
Yeah.
Yay! But at the time, they were the voice saying, no. And so I think today we're talking a lot about embracing differences. I think our commonality is we're all kind of different from the norm. You know, does that?
Yeah, I mean, when I brought us all together today, I was like, I don't know exactly what will result as this conversation, but I think that's the thread here. That's
the thread through fitness. We all go to the same gym, probably for a lot of the same fucked up reasons, because it brings some level of order, foundation to our life. In chaos, it brings some order, and then because we're all out of order. I find, like you said, like a lot of fitness people are chaotic, and they find like groundedness through like fitness.
Yeah, it's home base in a way, right? It's like it doesn't lie to me, right? It's
Yeah.
I
You can see it.
you can touch grass there.
It's results oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we'll do one more thing. So each episode, I've been having a guest answer a question from the previous guest,
Let's go.
Oh, wow.
Juicy.
and then they write a question to the next
Was
guest.
Casey the previous guest?
No, the last guest was Brad Womack.
Oh,
yeah, I love
nice.
Brad.
Let's go.
Yeah, we had a nice time for sure. So let me grab his question here. And I'll have you guys answer it. I've never had two people, so.
Yeah, Brad, you're cool. Well, any guest you got on the show, it'll be dope to answer a question from him.
I wanna
make
like
sure.
clip it so I can get the actual conversation of like one person asking to the next. But
I gotta make sure, because it's funny because when it comes to questions, you know, a lot of like one of your guests, Peyton Knight, you know, recently put and I do this. This is me being corny, me being me, the currency.
Yeah.
You know, she put on her Instagram story recently, like, you know, ask me anything, AMA, and anytime somebody puts an AMA on their Instagram story, I will always ask two questions. It's either who's your favorite Napoleonic marshal,
That's funny.
which makes them then go look these people up so they can realize how badass they were. You know, like Gene Lands and some of these epic guys from history. Or I ask their opinion on repealing the Jones Act, which is a maritime law piece of legislation that actually has a lot of effect on like trade and stuff. And it's there's a lot of. I know a guy who's very passionate about repealing the Jones Act, so I always ask people to make them look up something that you would never look up, like not even trucking related, but
Give them some exposure to
maritime freight related, just so it just plants a little seed, because all of a sudden, because you never know if they see the Jones Act and then they look into it and then they're like, wait a minute, this is affecting the cost of goods. This is, you know, realizing it. That's just a little humor in
A little
there.
education.
Yeah, a little humor. Me adding my own spin on it. But okay, so this is the question.
Yep.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, and then I think we'll have you answer
Is
it.
it two questions or one?
Just one. I didn't know I was having. I was gonna have another guest today, reschedule with them, and then I was like, well, we're just gonna see if I can throw something together here.
What family member do you admire the most and why? Living or dead?
It's up to you.
Yeah, that's tough. Because I mean, I did already say my grandfather was my hero at the beginning of the show. So I mean, he's already definitely gotten a lot of credit, which I should explain why. Growing up, like he was, you know, everybody has told me so, and especially since he passed away in 2013, so many people have told me stories about him from when he drove and who he is, and I've been told a lot of times that I remind them of, you know, my grandfather in certain ways, but he was always a hero to me growing up because he was a bull. He had like the biggest forearms, a tough guy. But the family member I admire the most, this is really, it's really tough because it's my Uncle Harry passed away recently, and he's definitely somebody I really admire, and I definitely wish I got to see him the last time. But it's like, it's a tough toss up between my parents because. It's hard to decide between both my parents because just like my wife and I, my dad and my mom, like when my dad started his business, again, my dad went to rehab in '93, and it was my mom who, you know, sent him there and stayed with him. My dad started a business in '99, stayed there, you know, has been the accountant, helped him grow it. So it's like between my mom and my dad, it's really tough. But I guess being my father's son, it's like I gotta say it's my dad because of his ultimate story that he is like so humble about. Again, like my dad's, you know, he doesn't make content or any of that stuff, but my dad has, you know, he's had 2 DUIs. He quit drinking in 1993. He had 2 kids, mind you, by the in 1993 that he went to rehab for. One of them, me, being 3 years old. So I mean, so he struggled, didn't finish high school, and now he owns this business, and he's had to navigate. He's had to run that business. You know, he had a partner first. He had to buy out his partner years ago because his partner was a piece of shit. And my dad's had employees who've stolen from him, and he's given them second chance. Like, you know, he had employees steal copper from him because they were selling the copper for drug money. And those guys went away.
Classic.
And classic, right? And then my dad hired those people back out of the kindness of his heart. He my dad runs an AA meeting out of his shop. Like, so he's got they've got a room in the shop there where they have meetings. I forget what days, but like he does all this stuff, and he's been so selfless, in this entire journey, and runs this. He's this really successful entrepreneur in what he's done, and now he does have a good crew. And when he bought out his partner, things got so much better. And so when I look at his entire story, it's like my dad needs a podcast or a book or all that. Like, there's so many people who can learn from my dad, and nobody knows who he is.
That's why I was just talking to someone about this today. Like, most of probably the most extraordinary people in the world, we don't even know who the fuck they are. They just seem like normal people, right?
It's incredible. So I mean, he's definitely got to get the most admiration just from navigating, and I probably get my love of history and pride and family pride from him. Like my dad is born and raised in Waterbury, loves the city of Waterbury. Waterbury is like Rust Belt city, and this is in Connecticut. It's very Rust Belty. Its best days are behind it. It used to be a huge powerhouse. Like, I mean, you're talking, it's the brass city. It was on Hitler's bombing list. This was one of the most like biggest manufacturing hubs in the country at a time. In Waterbury, and it's obviously between NAFTA and everything, it's totally gone downhill. But my dad still like bleeds for Waterbury. Like, loves it, believes it can be so great, and it's like just who he is. I mean, he's definitely. My grandfather was my like a childhood hero, but my dad he'll always be my hero. I mean, the story he's written, again, do you want to talk about unconventional? Yeah, has he had a linear progression? Sure, but he still dropped out of high school, ran away to Florida, was dragged back by his mom, my grandmother, started centerless grinding at 16. Yeah, is he still doing centerless grinding? Sure, but he owns the business now, and he's had to. And I think any business owner, it's like, yeah, you're more than just doing centerless grinding at that point. So I mean, he definitely takes it. It's got to be my dad, Tony, as his friends call him.
Tony.
Yeah, it's an innately tough question, because we go back to like our extended family, and if they were all sitting here and we got asked that question, they'd be like, "Yo, what the fuck?" Like,
No, it's not me.
The feelings would actually be hurt. Like, what?
Yeah.
So it makes it easy for me
It's a polarizing question.
Because I can look at it in a way that my whole family's alive except Pop, who passed. And so no one can debate me as far as like my dad, right? So, and I look at him as an example of, he comes from a generation of hard work, right? Like your Pop, and just sacrificing everything for us all the time, and providing a very sort of homebound foundation for us. But in life, I remember at his funeral, like, which was important to me that we talked about, was after the funeral, everyone came up to me, and each one made me cry till I had to say stop. That would say, "Hey, can I tell you something about your dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And they'd be like, "Your dad did this for me that helped me do this." And I was always like, "Oh shit." But Dad never told me that. He never said any of these stories ever, because he was from the generation, like, we're the generation of having to tell everyone. They were the generation of telling no one. Yeah. And so also because Pop worked hard, and he made sure in passing that he made sure that all of us would be okay. So the whole extended family, and my bro, my sister, my mom. And in that, I am thankful, but he was an amazing example. Another one of these characters that, like you said, he could have shared a lot, but was from a generation that didn't, and that we could all learn from. And so I would have to say Pops, because I believe within my own family, no one could argue that. I think if I picked other people would be like, "Fuck that, no way." Like, yeah, no, Mom, this, bro, this. They'd fight amongst themselves. But Dad, no one can fight. Like, I look at the unanimous decision. If I said, everyone would be like, yeah, 100%. So it'd be my Pop.
Thanks. You want me to answer?
Yeah.
All right.
100%. Are you supposed to? Is that the rules?
I don't know. I can't remember if I have every time or not. But yeah, I would say my dad. I'm trying to think. So I'm from a family of 6 kids. I'm also a twin, but
Which is nuts.
6. Yeah, they had 6 kids in 8 years. I don't know what the fuck they were doing. No
Well,
family planning.
Yeah.
No peptides either.
Yeah.
But I think in my entire life, I can only think of one time I ever caught my dad lying, even white lies or anything, and it was to try and protect someone else. And he also, as they had a bunch of kids really quick, he was like, damn, my parents paid for my college. Like, I need to be able to provide for these 6 kids and at a level where I'm able to pay for their college. He's like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, but I'm going to get this done. He got it done. And I think just great, like, I don't know that I honestly know anyone with better integrity than him. He does not half-ass things. Like, if he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And and he's very good at like holding people accountable, but he's not like an asshole either. He's like quick to forgive. And I've done things that most definitely have fucked up along the way, as being a drug addict and stuff. And I'll be really ashamed of it, or like scared to tell him, like, Dad, like, I fucked this up, or like I did this thing that wasn't so good. And sometimes it's been to him, right, where I haven't like treated him the best per se. And I'll go to say sorry, and if I try to say sorry multiple times, he just goes, Mitchell, I forgive you. Once is enough. Don't say it again. And so I think just that providing, and I don't know, my spiritual views are definitely different than his, but he's one of the most clear-cut examples I can think of someone whose faith has really like served him well in terms of standing by loved ones, with struggles, or I guess finding purpose in some of the difficulties that like our family has faced and stuff like that. So I love my dad. Great.
Hey, it was
Great man.
unanimous, guys.
There we
The
go.
third thread. It was the threads there too.
And my dad's just him. I have
Yeah.
never seen him ever be, I don't even know, like anxious and talking to someone. Like, he's always just him. He does not worry about stuff like that. He's not bothered by people, speaking ill of him ever or anything at all. He's just like, it's fine. I'm just me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Hell yeah.
We can wrap.
Yeah, wrapped it up.
All right. Well, thank you both for
Yeah.
coming on. And I guess I want to give you guys both a sec if there's anything you want to share as far as like, this is my content, check out my stuff here, or anything at all like that.
Yeah, hey, I'm on the internet everywhere at Lombard Trucking. You can support a lot of what we do at project-61.org too, if you care about driver health, or if you know any drivers out there who are needing a little bit of guidance, you can always send them my way. And whatever it is you're going through, or anything like that, keep the faith. Just like I tie history into a lot of what I talk about. Because and reason being is because so many people not that long ago, even, we're talking 50 to 100 years ago, had so much less than us. And again, it's to zoom out and realize that, your great grandparents had so much less resources, no internet, no anything. So when it comes to whatever you want to do, between YouTube and school and this and access to information, if you've got a dream or have an interest or an itch that you need to scratch, go scratch it, because they lived and died so you can have that opportunity to do it today. And so honor your ancestors by being who you want to be and doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I have no social media presence. I do, but I would say I appreciate Mitchell having us today, Michael and I, for feeling that we were worthy to share and that people could maybe glean something from our conversation today. The only social media presence I have, Chief_Abbott, Paul Abbott. And,
Always good for a life.
Yeah, well, just follow me, and if you ever need anything, just DM me. That's it.
All right. Cut there.
Thank you.